can hear you, Tim.
David's here, Sam.
Hi, David.
Sam, am I okay?
I can hear you. Yep.
Nicole's here.
Nicole, there you go. All right.
Jeff,
Rick, are you there too?
I am here.
Look at that.
Jeff, are you,
Yes.
can you come over here real quick before we start this meeting?
Yes.
Have we seen Andy Dinsmore or Joseph Kinsella? They both said that they were going to be on the meeting.
I see Andy.
Andy's here.
Thank
There's
you.
Andy.
Is my camera on, Jeff?
He had to go to, no, it is not. It's on the left lower corner by your mic. If you want a camera on.
Jeff, if you're still there,
He's,
I've resolved it.
he's halfway there.
Question. How do I get rid of this chat thing now? Because when I clicked that, it got all messed up.
I think if you click here, it'll go away, or that.
Okay.
Either one's good.
I'm not touching anything.
You'll be all right.
Thank you.
Hello? Yeah.
So it appears we have everybody except we don't have Northeast, but everybody else is here, I think.
So the YouTube stream has started, but I need to get it published as well, and then we're ready to rock.
All right. Let me know when we're ready.
Ready.
All right, good evening, everybody. We're going to start with our work session here. I think Fred's going to give us the, we've all received the written report from Chris for this month. He's going to highlight a couple things.
Good evening, everyone. Just a very brief update on 2 points here, 3 points actually. So I've provided the written report from Chris Coughlin. Usually he is scheduled to be at these meetings going forward. We have such a packed agenda tonight. We asked him if he would just provide his written update. I think probably the big point to note there is that there was discussion of an added expense to have the BIU review our plans. And that was projected to be a $600,000 or 6% cost. I think there were a couple of calls that were made directly to the Summit Town office, and now that cost is projected to be somewhere in the area of only $50,000. I asked Chris to come and present that in case there were any questions about how that came about. But that is a cost savings, and Chris will be here at the January 28th meeting to present his final work. And so at this point, we have not authorized Chris to spend any more than $675,000. So anything that he's talking about bringing forward at this point requires approval from the JOC. So I've got Chris stopped and said, don't submit these drawings to BIU unless we have some resolution from the JOC approving that expense, because we would have to go back to the school districts and ask for additional resources to pay that bill. The reason that I thought that was an important issue is not just because we don't have the authorization to spend the money, but there have already been 3 instances where added resources have been consumed without JOC approval. And so we've already got a few $1,000s, and those will be with the wastewater management cost and the drilling and the coring, and these were the things that we've talked about in the past. Additionally, Chris delivered late this afternoon a gigantic roll of prints and 3 sets of specifications in preparation for our review now. So what we will do is, after the holiday break is over, we'll call a meeting with the renovation committee much prior to the January 28th meeting to have a conversation about that. And we'll schedule Chris Coughlin to be at that meeting with us. And so any question is fair game. And so that would conclude Chris's report for right now.
Do we have any questions on that? You understand what, he hasn't stopped, but Fred and I have had a few conversations. We're not comfortable proceeding and spending any more money until we get some answers. And hopefully later on tonight, we'll have some answers. We're still, by the time it goes to BIU, they go through their process, which is anywhere from 3 weeks to 10 or 12 weeks. That all has to happen before it goes out for bid, which means we're not going to follow our timeline, especially if we don't continue going right now. So I'd be happy for any input on, I hate to see us slow down, but at this point, it's going to be difficult to spend money that, we haven't authorized yet.
Are we going to meet the deadline for, so that we don't have to do a whole bunch of changes if we remain where we are now?
Terry, I think that's a technicality question. We're looking at a delay. We don't know how much of a delay there is. And there's a big conversation that's got to be had tonight. The new building codes, I believe what you're referring to is when are we responsible to modify the design work we've got done right now for the new code?
Yes.
Okay, so my understanding on that was we've got just inside of a year. And I believe, Terry, you're on that renovation committee. Is that correct?
Yes.
So when we have Chris come in and present, I think that's another great question, but I think so much depends on our conversation later tonight about the funding formula that let's see where that goes. And then I will funnel Chris any appropriate questions.
Okay.
Tim, I don't want to take anything away from your report later, but we do have, I think, an acceptance letter that we're going to be voting on later on the PennDOT circle project out front there. With the reduced amount, I guess my question is, what is the expectation of those funds?
Well, that's unclear at the present time. Obviously, it's something to be decided by the JOC and the school districts. I think the first step, though, is to figure out whether or not we have a resolution at all.
Well, if that's approved, when do you expect cash to come from Pennsylvania? Is that something that's going to happen soon or at the end of the project time?
I would think it would come fairly quickly, maybe within a couple of months after the filing of the settlement.
Okay.
Or a shorter period of time. PennDOT seems to be all of a sudden, they appear to be in a hurry.
Hey, Sam.
Yes, Steve.
From what Dr. Walker mentioned earlier about this, possibly 50 grand, or it could have been 100 grand or whatever. I agree. A lot of it hinges on what happens tonight. But my question is, were these fees, whether it be the low one, the medium one, or the high one, were those all included in the 32.5 million final project?
Yes.
Okay, we're sure.
Yes, that's the short answer. Basically, from my understanding, and Fred can pop in here anytime, but my understanding was he had budgeted the 32.5 million, the amount that it would take to go through labor and industry, which is basically 7%. The same fee he gets, I believe. So locally, as long as it's reviewed, inspected locally through BIU, it is much cheaper. Tonight's the first time I'm hearing the 50,000. I thought we were in the 80 to 100,000 range. That needs to be paid, if I'm understanding correctly. That needs to be paid upon the completion of in order to give us a building permit.
Okay, so if I'm understanding that correctly, if we're going with the lowball figure of 50,000 and they had planned for roughly 500,000, I mean, we just shaved $500,000 from the project, possibly.
Correct. I think
Okay.
what was from what Fred has talked about and Chris is that would sit in reserves. At this point, that extra would sit in reserves to help with more equipment or that type of thing if it's needed.
Or the famous contingency fund.
Yes.
Or can I just say this? Really that savings is moot if we're not going out to bid in January, though, because the later we hold off to go out to bid, the more expensive our bids will be.
Terry, this is Fred Walker, and that's a very fair and valid point. Construction costs are increasing 4 to 4.5% per year.
Yeah. So you're looking at,
if we miss this 1 year window, then we're going to have some level of cost increase. And
yeah, but not only the 4.5% year, not only the year window. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about your best bet to get your best bids is in January. And if we're going to miss the January cutoff to go out to bid, we're costing ourselves money by waiting until February, March, April, when these people have jobs already and they don't really care if they're coming in under somebody else's bid.
Understood.
I agree with all the comments being made. I don't like the delay. I guess at the end of the evening, once we get a feel for everybody's feeling on Mill Creek's proposal, if we think this thing's going to go forward, the only way to help continue close to our timeline is dual track is to tell Chris to continue and bill us for those fees in order to keep continuing, because we're still a month or two away from actually, going to bid and finding out what the project is real, even if we haven't gone back to every school district and asked for approval. So if we're really concerned about the time frame, that's going to have to be a dual track that we agree to. But the JOC chair or the director should not be the two making that decision for everybody else, because you guys all need to pay for it. So that's what I haven't felt comfortable, nor has Fred, to tell Chris, hey, we're going to stick to this timeline no matter if the project goes forward or not. And it means spending extra money than what we've already agreed to. So that's a decision that if somebody wants to make a motion later on to continue doing that, we can see where that goes. But
no, I would say, honestly, I wouldn't want to put another penny into this if it's not going to go forward.
Correct.
If it's going to fail because of whatever reason, then there's no sense putting any more money into it.
Dennis, I think we should take our time and we have to look at these plans before we go for review, because if we see something we don't like, we had to do fix-ups. I think you're trying to rush it too much. I hate to say this, because if you look at that McDowell proposal, it's putting a lot of people have a bigger hand in the, more out of their pocket. So only Mill Creek and Fairview and General McLean have less concerns. So I'm willing to wait. I want to see these. I'm not voting until I see the plans myself. So you can do whatever you want. I'll just say no.
Dennis, Those plans arrived somewhere between 3 and 3:30 this afternoon. I haven't even taken the rubber band off the roll of paper. I think the next step is to call a meeting of the renovation committee and just see what we've got. And rather than us trying to figure it out, we call Chris in and have him explain what we're looking at. And I'm not a proponent for rushing this thing either.
I think there's a lot of work to do before these drawings and specs go out. I think there's going to be more than one meeting, and I think it'd be appreciated if the drawings went out ahead of time, or at least what can go out. I know there's a lot, but I can't see us sitting at a meeting and going over 20 drawings or 30 drawings or whatever they're at any one time. And I think that's going to get, and got to go back and forth with corrections or changes or whatever. So it's going to take a while, no doubt about it.
I'm not sure how I will work through this. I'll contact Chris and have him send out electronic copies, but all of these drawings are on very large paper. And I'm kidding you not, that roll of paper is this big around. It's enormous.
John, just a clarifying question. When you say send the prints out, you're talking about out to everybody or everybody out to the committee, not out to BIU, correct?
No. This would just go to the renovation committee for their consideration. But
And I'm
remember,
not saying
you know,
paper. I'm not saying
understand.
paper. I'm saying electronically.
Okay.
That's
Yep.
all.
Very good. Thank you.
Whatever's reasonable. And no, we don't need to see all the details, but at some point we're going to look at the drawing or the project in whole to kind of get a feel for it, and then we'll have some questions. Can't see going there. It's a lot to ask.
I'd like to said, the whole thing laid out, the top layer, not the bottom layer with a foot, like the wiring or the footers. I'm more interested in the true layout and where we have plans for all and how many square footage it is.
So what I'll do is see if I can put together a Teams or a Zoom meeting with the renovation committee to summarize in advance what people would like to see and how they'd like to see it. And then we'll come up with a plan forward on how best to get that work done. And we'll do that either right before or just after the holiday break, with the intention of calling Chris to campus here very shortly after the break.
Hey, Sam,
Yes, Steve.
didn't we go over the basic footprints that showed the square footage and showed what was changing? I thought we went over all this that night. He had his HVAC specialist in there when we were choosing what type of AC and everything else in there.
Yeah, we did.
We did. I guess the question is, has anything changed since then? You know, when they
Well,
started.
I would have thought we would have made that decision that night. If we didn't tell him to change anything, nothing should have changed.
It would, a whole type of air conditioning changed. And the heating system here and we had two choices.
We made a decision that night of which way to go.
Yeah, so we need the drawings to show.
Weren't the drawings based on the plan that we approved? Based on the HVAC system that we
at
talked
that
about?
point, Terry, reflected what we had been talking about with a basic square footage allocation. I think what we're hearing is a call for a better look into the mechanicals in terms of how it looks on drawings and in the specifications. And this group has not, nor have I, frankly, seen that laid out. The first inspectable set of plans really just arrived now. And I would have everybody keep in mind that at our next meeting, which is January 28th, I believe, that's going to be when Chris is going to come and present what he believes is his project. Now, there may be a lot of unhappiness or approvals that have to happen between now and then, but that's his timeline. We can adjust that as we need to.
And like I said, the building committee is going to pick out all colors and carpeting and floor textures, ceiling textures, lighting system. Are they all going to do that?
I think Dell said he was going to have a little bit of involvement in that.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if the renovation committee was picking fit and fixtures and stuff, but I suppose we have to leave that up to the JOC or the renovation committee to make that decision.
I would love to do
We did
that. I
our
like to
remodeling.
decorate.
Yeah, I know this task, when we did our remodeling, we had to pick out what carpeting to use, what light fixtures to use, what wall colors to use. So it's not just, cut and dry.
Well, I think I would suggest that we look at the structure and the things that we're asking to last for 30 years and not worry about the carpet or the paint color. That we need to leave up to the administration about those minute details. If there's big issues with a difference price wise, we'll get there. But just to wrap this up a little bit, what I'm hearing is everybody understands the position that we're in, that we're not approving any extra money to be spent on anything that's not in Chris's initial fees at this point, that we'll continue, we'll begin the review with the committee. If anybody else wants to be on that committee and can make some input into that, feel free to let me know, and we can open that up. Maybe depending on how much detail we've got to look at, maybe we'll even split that if we've got too much to do with one committee. Then I think if we take and come together on January 28th, before that time, we'll have a diagram, a footprint, made sure that that's out to everybody, especially, Steve, if there was any changes from the one that we saw before, that's sent out to everybody. So when you come January 28th, then hopefully the building committee will have a little better feel for the project and more of the details, and then we can begin resolving that. And at that point, then we'll have time to have digested and started moving along on what Mill Creek's proposal is. And basically then January, we'll see, are we still in a holding pattern, a pause for a little bit? Are we ready to proceed? At that point, we'll have to wait and see what the next month brings. Does that sound as a basic framework that can work for everybody?
That's acceptable.
Yeah, so maybe if you get the building committee, and then just if we can meet in person, like we're hoping, have the drawings ready at 5 o'clock. So show up 5 o'clock to look at the drawings, and then our meeting starts at 6. Is that something we can achievable if we can get back in the building?
I'm sure we can accommodate something like that. Yep.
Even if we have to be spread out 6 feet.
Dennis, if it truly is a $32.5 million project, we're not going to get it done in an hour.
At least we can look at the drawings, and if we want a copy, which ones?
If you only have one copy and 11 people are gonna look at it, it's gonna be a backside to backside lineup.
We can ask for a PDF of them if we know which drawings to ask for. We don't want
Folks, I'm listening and taking notes intently. I understand the spirit of what you're asking for. I will contact Chris and alert him that we're going to have a renovation committee meeting. In the meantime, we want to get some plans out to people in something that is manageable and can be printed on regular printers at home. We can't print these huge documents that they have. And so we'll sort of start the conversation by getting people what they can print at home. Then we'll pull the building renovation committee together as soon as we can. And from there, things will start to unfold. And at this point, this is a great conversation, and it's also a very busy agenda for tonight. So I'm not trying to rush that or set us off to the side, but we don't have a look at any of these documents yet. We need to have time to unfold and see what's there.
Most of us have 8.5 by 11 printers.
That's correct.
You put any of those drawings on that size print, you might as well just not even bother to print them out.
right. You need PDFs.
I can take that guidance too, Mr. Buxby, because I agree with you. It's not going to be very valuable.
Right. That's where you need a PDF file of it. So then you can zoom in and zoom out if they're good PDFs. But like I said, like John said, that the building committee, I hopefully look these over, and then the rest of us come in and look at the drawings. at our regular
We're
meeting.
calling for 2 meetings before the January 28th meeting, one for the renovation committee and one for the JOC.
No, I'm just saying that for the regular building committee has it already done, looked at, and then the rest of us will come in an hour ahead to look at the drawings that everybody else had a couple of times to look at.
Why don't we just set 2 days, an open house, so to speak, where anybody who wants to go look at them can come in?
That's
Well,
probably,
I'll do whatever the will of the group is, but it seems to me that we're starting to pull apart these plans before the architect has even had a chance to lay them out.
Yep.
You know, I understand the pressure to keep the timeline going here, but we're going to generate more question and concern than we fix if we start tearing into a set of plans that we don't have the familiarization with.
I think we're going to be fine to put it out in a PDF format for everybody to look at. If somebody has some specialty or some real interest in a certain area and they want to look at the actual prints, you know, they can contact you, Dr. Walker, and come in and you know, look at those privately for that section that they want to see. And it's going to be easier on, you know, I don't see anybody printing this out. Jim's right. You'd have magnifying glass to get it on, you know, anything small. But let's get it out there, start digesting it, and then we'll go to the next step. We're trying to jump ahead here, probably a little too far.
Very well. I'm ready to go.
Any other questions about renovation at this point?
I think one of the biggest mistakes that can be made is to rush into this without thoroughly reviewing it. And if it takes a little extra time, that time is worth it in the end, where the extras aren't there. I think now is a critical time. And if you don't do it right now, we're going to pay for it in the end.
Agreed.
Did you find anybody to be the general contractor for us to be, I mean, the supervisor of the contract?
We've talked through that. There was some issue at the last JOC meeting where we were going to think about having somebody try to come in and help us with the conversation on an hourly basis before we committed to a clerk of the works. But frankly, there's so much up in the air with the funding and the future of this project right now. Consensus was that we don't start trying to retain a clerk of the works at this very minute.
Okay, go, thank you.
All right, let's move in our agenda. Jim, are you ready to move to
Yes.
our foundation meeting?
Yes. Terry, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
So let's see here. Well, we need a temporary chairperson. Who wants to volunteer for that?
Jim, I don't know if you need that for the foundation
Oh, wait a
meeting.
minute. No, I'm on the wrong stack of paper here. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Okay, we're gonna call the meeting to order.
Yes.
We need a motion to approve the following district appointees: Fort LaBeouf, Girard, Harbor Creek, and Iroquois.
Mahoney, so moved.
Second, Ring.
Second.
Any discussion? None being asked. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Motion passed. Okay, Terry, will you call roll?
Yes. Mr. Mahoney,
Here.
Mr. Dinsmore,
Here.
Mr. Buxby,
Here.
Mr. Olsnanik,
Here.
Mrs. Brink,
Here.
Mr. Rickroad,
Here.
Mr. DePlacido,
Here.
Mr. Kinsella is not in attendance, Mr. Ring,
Here.
Mr. Gilbert,
Here.
Ms. Lee.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a quorum. Thank you. Motion to accept the minutes of the August 27th, 2020 meeting.
So moved, Terry Brink.
Thank you. Was there a second on that?
Second, Ed Rickroad.
Thank you. Yeah, it would be helpful if on motions and that you state your name so Terry can pick you out. Okay, any discussions about the meeting agenda or the meeting minutes from August 27th? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Is there any abstentions? Not being so, motion passed. Okay, we're looking for a motion to approve the following individuals as officers for the Erie County Technical School Foundation for a one-year term per the corporate bylaws. Foundation president,
Go for Mr. Bugsby.
Second, Terry
Dennis,
Brink.
did you say? I heard my name, but I didn't hear what the
The
preface was.
president.
Sure. Is there a second to that?
Terry Brink.
Okay.
Motion to close nominations.
There we go. Okay. All the
Second.
nominations have been
I'll
closed.
second it, Dennis.
All the nominations have been closed. All in favor of Mr. Buxby for Foundation President, say aye.
Aye.
Dennis,
Opposed,
aye.
same sign. Motion passed. Okay. Foundation Vice President. We're looking for a motion.
Who's our current vice president?
Believe it's
Terry?
Dennis.
Was
Mr.
Den-
Mr.
was me.
Ostanek.
It wasn't me before.
Was it Dennis?
It was last year.
Nominate Dennis. Let's keep him the same. Who's our
I
treasurer?
second. Mahoney.
Who's the treasurer? Mr. Ring, you're the treasurer.
Oh, shoot. Oh,
We're keeping them the same.
Okay.
Motion to close.
There were so many people
Second.
talking, I didn't hear who was the Vice President nomination.
Dennis.
Dennis.
Dennis. Okay, Dennis. Are there any other
Motion to close nominations.
Is there a second?
Second, Ring.
All in favor of the nominations? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passed. Foundation Secretary. Terry Burchard has already volunteered for that service. Is there a motion to accept her?
Yes.
So moved, Mahoney.
Second, Dennis.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? No, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passed. Foundation Treasurer.
Sam Ring.
Second, Mahoney.
Excellent. Anyone else? Motion's closed.
So, I vote for motion close, second it.
Okay, good. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passed. Now, wait a minute, I gotta get this down here. Okay, now we have some business reports. Item number 6, Terry, would you give us a Reader's Digest version?
Sure. Because we haven't had a meeting for several months, I'm presenting July through the November statements for you. The statement of activities, Jeff, if you could scroll down a little bit farther right there. As you'll see in the far right column, the excuse me, net increase from activities is about $6,100 at this point, but the bulk of it is attributable to the changes on the foundation, the portfolio held at the Erie Community Foundation. If you look at the investment income toward the top of the statement, you'll see that the net overall investment income is about $12,000. So when we take that and offset the various expenses, that gives you the net increase from the activities of the $6,100. If we go to the next page, it's the statement of financial position, which is essentially the balance sheet, which reflects the cash and the investment account that's held at the Erie Community Foundation. If you can please zone in on the cash foundation PNC line. We have recently started being assessed service charges by PNC on the foundation accounts, and also the school's accounts. So there are motions on both agendas this evening to consider closing the PNC and moving the funds to Northwest Savings Bank, where we are earning interest, no matter how minimal the amount on deposit is, and they are assessing no service charges at all to us.
Everybody
next-
understand what she was saying? There's about $70 last report that we had to pay them for just doing paperwork.
Correct. If we go to the next page, on the check detail, you'll see what Mr. Buxby is referring to. They charged $50 to do the audit confirmation for the one account. And they also assessed a $10 service charge on the account. So I feel that we could do better just closing this account and moving it.
Carrie, were we notified that those charges would be coming, or did they just assess them without notification?
Well, it's been kind of a constant back and forth with myself and our rep. Every time a service charge would come in, I would contact her and she would say, oh, that was something, let me go in and waive that. And then the next month it would be back again. So, I tried to stay on it, and now I am not sure if she's with PNC at this point in time. So I think right now, none of the accounts that they were offering us had any interest on them to begin with.
Wow.
And so I just feel compelled that I think Northwest has been very pleased to receive your business.
Yeah.
And very accommodating to us. And even if it's just a few pennies of interest, it's more than we had at the beginning of the day. So I feel like I could recommend this move.
Agreed. I would make sure that PNC realizes that they're losing our business due to their lack of forthcoming.
Yes, the manager at the mall branch used to be the manager that I dealt with in Edinburgh at that branch. And I have spoken to her a couple times. Obviously, you can't really walk in the lobbies anymore to see anybody, but I have let Kathy know that we will be pulling the accounts. And the reason why is that, we're not in the position to be paying a service charge.
Okay, so we
A
can,
year or two ago, Jim, we moved, quite a few assets over to Northwest, and that was more of a getting comfortable. We didn't close the PNC accounts then.
that's correct.
And probably not the same amount of volume in there too, because we have another one. So this makes good sense to close it out and move it all over to Northwest. We're comfortable with them now.
So why don't we take care of this by motion, item number 7B, look for motion to approve the closing of the PNC bank account and transferring the remaining balances to the Northwest bank account.
Well,
So
do we
moved,
need to
Terry
approve,
Brink.
do we need to approve the business and reports first?
Yeah, the next report up is actually the treasurer's report for the evening. And because we haven't met for a while, I'll just be extremely brief. I ran the months that we did not have meetings side by side for you. This is the report that's on cash basis. And as you can see, as Jeff scrolls downward, there is not a lot of activity in the foundation at this point. We did transfer in August, we transferred funds to PNC to be able to cover the scholarship checks, which we had cut to the recipients. We wanted to be sure that we had the money in the account that those transactions had come out of. Jeff, if you could scroll down a little bit farther to the next page. As you can see, we have the funds that are still at Northwest Savings Bank. And basically the expenses were bare essentials. We paid the insurance that was due, we paid the audit fees, and that's essentially the activity in the foundation at this point. And if you scroll down a little bit more, Jeff, Could you go to the next page so we can, there we go. The Community Foundation is still behind on statements, so I do not have the numbers for the November statement yet. As you can see, we had some nice unrealized earnings in the August statement, and then things started to just flatline, go a little bit of a loss in September, October statements. So I'll be curious to see what the activity is once we do receive the November statement. And I believe that takes care of the treasurer's report for this evening.
Is there any comments?
Yeah, what's our, how much money do we have in the Northwest checking account? You went by it, I forgot what it was.
The Northwest checking account has about $3,100.
Okay, I just was checking, make sure we had enough money for item 1 coming up on new business. Okay. Good.
Motion to approve the treasurer reports, business reports, sorry.
Yes.
Mahoney,
Who's
Second, Brink.
Okay. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passed. Okay, we're going on to item C, motion to approve up to $3,000 in scholarships to
Do we have
Erie
to-
County Tech students.
Don't we have-
for 2021.
We have
Jim,
the,
are we doing 7A? 7A?
We just did that. Oh, no, we
Oh,
didn't
we-
either. I'm sorry. No, we didn't. Okay, looking for a motion to approve the $1,000 for the Christmas gift card donation for the Erie County Tech School students.
So
This is
moved,
generally
Brink.
a John Ogden motion, but he's not here anymore. So who wants
So
to make
moved,
that
Brink.
motion?
Do we lose somebody? I'll second it, or if it's necessary, Dennis.
I think Terry, are you the one that made the motion?
Yes, Terry Brink.
Yes, okay, thank you. All right, and Dennis seconded it.
Yes.
Are there any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
aye,
Opposed, same sign, motion passed. Okay, now 7B.
Your dad said they were all gone.
Okay, well, 7B was moving the transfers, we already did that.
No, we had to vote on it, I think now.
Oh, we haven't voted on it yet?
No, Jim, there was an initial motion, but we went back to the treasurer's report. So we need a new motion and a second on that, 7B.
Okay, for 7B, we need a motion to approve the closing of the PST Bank and transferring this remaining balances to Northwest.
I'll make a motion, John.
I'll second it, Dennis.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passed. Okay, 7C. Because we are having the foundation meetings every 3 months, this would put us out to April for the scholarship motion, but that's bringing us up a little close with regard to the scholarships. So the idea was to move a motion to approve up to $3,000 in scholarships for the 2021 school year. And it would be spread out according to what we have done in the past.
Jeff, if you could page down one more page, please.
Okay, page down one more. Yeah, there we go.
Hmm,
Um,
Not, I'm sorry, yeah, there you go. Thank you.
There we go. So that's approving what we've had in the past, which is the 750 to 600 for 3 awards and the 150 for 3 awards. So we would be giving out 7 awards, and the union will also give out 1 award equal to the $750. So what we're doing right now is just trying to get ahead of the game and not have to worry about this and forgetting about it and then scramble later on in the year.
Dinsmore, so moved.
Mahoney, second,
Thank you. Is there any discussion about this?
Barry, I'm just wondering, when can we pull money out of the foundation? Is that end of year or end of school year?
No, that actually normally happens February to the first part of March. We receive a letter telling us what the amount is, and that is partly why I was going to jump in and say, don't worry, because we have some funds in PEDS, but we should also be able to take a distribution from the Community Foundation prior to the payments of these awards.
Okay.
Good, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any other questions on that? None? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passed. All right. If there's no other business, our next meeting is Thursday, March 25th, 2021. And if there is no other comments, we look for a motion to adjourn.
So move, Dennis.
Second, Frank.
Thank you. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. We're adjourned. Thank you very much. We'll turn it over now to our chairman, Sam Ring.
Actually, Jim, we're going to move on to the Joint Operating Committee meeting, regular meeting. And I'm Tim Sennett from the Knox Law Firm. I'm acting as temporary chairman of the meeting because this is our reorganization meeting.
Yes.
Before I turn to the agenda, I do want to review the virtual meeting communication protocol that we're going to try to follow. And that is as follows. This is a public virtual meeting streamed to the public on YouTube Live. The Joint Operating Committee members are asked to keep their video camera active and their microphone muted during the duration until you're asked to speak. When speaking in discussion or voting, proceed statements with your name and district as you have been doing during the foundation meeting. All others attending the meeting intending to address the Joint Operating Committee, we ask you to keep your microphone muted until you're asked to speak or recognized. When speaking, please please activate your camera and your microphone, and then proceed with the statement identifying yourself with your name, school district, and position. In addition, if you are a guest and prefer not to speak, you can use the chat feature in Zoom, and your statement or question will be posed by the Joint Operating Committee Zoom host. With that protocol announcement, I will move forward with a moment of reflection. Thank you very much. At this point, we will proceed with the Pledge of Allegiance. If everyone would stand, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. At this point, we would recognize the new district appointed committee members. From Harbor Creek, Terry Brink, her term runs to 2023. From Gerard, Dennis Olsenik, again to 2023. From Fort LaBeouf, Andy Dinsmore for the same term. And finally, for Iroquois, Eric Rickroad to 2023. At this point, ask Terry to call the roll for the regular meeting, please.
Yes. Mr. Mahoney,
Present.
Mr. Dinsmore,
Present.
Mr. Buxby, Mr. Buxby,
Muted.
Mr. Osnanek,
Here.
Mrs. Brink,
Present.
Mr. Rickroad,
Here.
Mr. DePlacido,
Here.
Mr. Cancilla is absent. Mr. Ring,
Here.
Mr. Gilbert,
Here.
Miss Lee.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Next item is the chairperson election. And at this point, I will call for nominations for chairperson.
Mr. Senate Gilbert here. I nominate Sam Ring.
I second. Bucksby.
Are there any other nominations? Hearing no further nominations, is there a motion to close nominations?
So moved.
Motion closed, Terry Brink.
And I need a second to close nominations.
I'll
Mahoney
second it.
Ed Rick Road.
Okay.
All those in favor of closing nominations, please say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? All those in favor of Mr. Ring as the chairperson of the JOC, please say aye.
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 Anybody opposed?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? At this point, Mr. Ring, I'm turning the meeting over to you as the new chairperson of the JOC. Congratulations, I think.
Thank you, I think, Mr. Senate. Moving on, then we call for nominations for a vice chairperson.
Sam, I'd like to nominate Mr. Mahoney from Fairview.
Dinsmore, second.
I respectfully decline. Thank you.
Not allowed, Tim.
Yes?
Are there any other nominations?
Dennis, I'll nominate John Belasco.
Is there a second?
I'll second it. Ed Rick Road.
Any other nominations?
Sam, I didn't get who the nomination was for. Who was it?
John DePlacido.
Okay.
Hearing none, is there a motion to close nominations?
Motion closed, Dennis. Olesnik.
Nicole second.
Thank you very much. So now we vote on the vice chairperson. All those in favor of John DePlacido signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Congratulations, John.
Thank you.
That takes us to number 7, agenda and amendments. So do we have any, I don't see any amendments here. Do we have any?
Sam, we updated the invoices payable for the general fund. This is Terry Burchard. And we also added a PowerPoint presentation that we received from Mill Creek's business office to the agenda for the various items below.
Very good. So I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda and amendments.
I'll make a motion, John.
Dinsmore, second.
Thank you. We've got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Passes. Thank you. Or any, I guess I'm supposed to ask that. Very good. Moving on, we've got the meeting minutes. Would somebody like to move that?
I'll move it. Ed Rick Road.
Second Brink.
Any discussion, corrections? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Carries. Takes us to student accomplishments and ECTS highlights. Who's going to do this for us?
I think Joe does that, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yes.
Go.
Is he in there, Jeff?
I think I hear him. Hang on.
Yeah, I'm here, guys. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to unmute myself. Again, there's several things that we're bringing to your attention this evening. First of all is the 2020 Patrick R. Laco Scholarship that's given by the Business Manufacturers Association. Andrew Ryland won that award this year. And of course, we had 4 nominations that went through the interview process. And of course, with COVID, it was very challenging early in the year, but we're really proud of Andrew. He's an excellent choice for that award. And that'll be $1,000 scholarship for him. Again, Career Street, of course, we used to have that under our umbrella, but they did a wonderful feature on Aaron McChesney, who graduated from us last year for this non-traditional idea and women in the workplace. And Aaron's right now working at Bianchi Honda. And so again, it was a wonderful feature in the roadmap section there. Of course, you got your Beatitude students that we send out for October and November. And again, we're very excited. We always try to divide those up for you by your district so you can share that. I do share this with the principals also. This year, the pictures are being directly mailed to the families immediately because, of course, we have nobody walking in our hallways here. But the homeschool districts get another picture, too, that they have displayed in their hallways and stuff. So again, I appreciate your recognition at your board meetings of those students. If we can go back to the agenda there, thank you. Exemplary students for the first quarter. Of course, we had quite a few students here, and it's in my report, but we had 242 students that made the honor roll. And then we had perfect attendance of 181 students. And again, those are phenomenal numbers in this time with the COVID-19 issue. So again, those are wonderful. The distinguished students, of course, are the 106 students. And again, we're really proud of them. And then that'll roll over to the exemplary idea later in the year. When we talk about the 4 quarters, we always try to identify the exemplary. But this is also divided up for you. But these are first quarter honors here at the Erie County Tech School. And then finally, I'd like to just let you know there's this ECTS recruitment video. Please know that there was a lot of work put in there, and I really want to commend Sandy Carr and Lisa Scalise and Mary Folkrod for helping me finalize this project that Lisa Sorensen started for us. Again, we have a lot of students that were involved from your district, so we're trying to share that information with you in this report. So the students that we chose to be part of this recruitment video are our students, but they're really students from your district, so you'll see that. And again, it gives you the opportunity to go back and watch that. And then finally, I'm very excited. Tomorrow on December 16th, we have Kelly Schulis. We call her, of course, Chef Schulis. She was nominated for the Golden Apple Award by a student, Emily Varner from Girard High School. It was a beautiful letter, a nomination letter, and we were very excited to have Edinburgh and WJT recognize Ms. Schulis. So if you do want to watch that, that does air tomorrow. Once again, we have some outstanding teachers here, and it's always nice when their students recognize them, such in this case. That's our report for this evening with the student and staff recognition.
Thanks, Joe. Anybody have any questions on any of that for Joe? Hearing none, that takes us to our guest and public comment. Do you have any guests that want to address the board?
Yes, Sam, I have Joe Salarino, who I think wants to address the board. He's an attendee. I'll turn his microphone on now if he wishes to address the board.
Thank you. Joe, are you there?
Hello?
Howdy, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Thank you, everybody. My name is physics instructor at ECTS and the current president of AFT Local 1589. Can you guys see me?
I cannot.
Okay.
I can hear you though.
Joe, if you want to turn your video on, you're promoted, so you can turn your video on.
Can we hide the agenda there for a minute?
Well, you can go to the right side and just scroll down to his name.
You're so advanced, I tell you, Jim.
Okay, there I am. All right, sorry, guys. Okay, so I am the AFT Local 1589 president currently. I represent the professional and classified units at the school. I live in the Northwestern School District. I want to thank you for allowing me to speak. I also want to welcome our new JOC members and let all of you know that so I'll try to be brief as I can, but I need to say a couple things, and that is that ECTS is a unique and wonderful place, and I'm proud of our admin team and our professional and classified units for coming together in this environment in which we now live and work. As you know, ECTS is a place where students travel from nearly every corner of the county to learn and practice valuable skills. Our students are going to work, saving money, and buying homes. This is my 20th year at the school, and I really believe that ECTS is an outstanding institution, and it keeps getting better. With that said, as you know, this is a very unusual year that has presented some threats to the health and safety of our staff. And we've tried to do our best to follow the protocols of wearing masks and washing our hands, keeping our distance, and making sure our building is clean. And our students, I have to tell you guys, our students have been wonderful and cooperative, but you can imagine the challenges. Many people in Erie County are sick. I have a friend that was just released from the ICU after a couple of weeks, and he's finally coming home, thankfully, but he's on oxygen now. It's pretty scary. So in an effort to protect their members, many, if not all, of your home district teachers unions developed a memorandum of understanding between the unions and the school boards. The AFT Local 1589 team has also developed an MOU, and we took several weeks to carefully revise and fine-tune it. And by the end of September, I think it was, we had a document that we believe is relevant and efficient. In early October, I presented the MOU to Dr. Walker, and a short time later, he forwarded it to Mr. Ring. So I just want to request on behalf of our federation that this MOU document be distributed to the members of this body so it can be reviewed and we can begin a conversation about its content and then move toward signing the agreement. And I want to stress the importance of this request. Again, I appreciate the time to speak tonight. And I want to take this time to wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. If anybody has any questions for me, I'll be happy to address them.
Thank you, Joe. I will let you know that we have distributed the MOU that you presented to us to all the members at our last meeting. And it is under review by our legal counsel. And as soon as we can appropriately get back to you, we will.
Okay, that's
Thank
fantastic.
you for your sharing with us tonight, and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you too.
Thank you very much.
Is there anybody else that would like to address the board?
I do not have any registered guest speakers other than Mr. Salarino.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you again. Let's move on in our agenda. We've got number 11, correspondence. We've got a Summit Township Developers Agreement and escrow. Terry, anything you need to bring to our attention about that, or just for information?
Actually, Dr. Walker probably knows more about this document than I do.
Does this need a vote?
I think it's just correspondence, just making sure there's nothing more we need to know about this. Fred, is there?
I don't believe there's anything more than information on this. We received some paperwork from PennDOT regarding this offer, and then Mr. Sennett's going to address that a little bit later in our meeting.
All right, very good. Takes us number 12, operations, new business.
Mr. Rain, just to
Yes, go ahead,
interrupt
Tim.
for a second. This is the developers agreement between the Erie County Technical School and Summit Township for the addition to the building. This is part of the project, not the PennDOT project. This is the standard, standard developers agreement between a developer in Summit Township. Anytime you add an addition to the building, you have to have a developer's agreement with Summit Township. It also requires $1,000 in escrow to be paid. Well, according to the letter, it was paid on November 30th, 2020. So I think that it just required Dr. Walker's signature to the agreement, and I'm not sure whether, Fred, if you've moved forward on that or not.
I have not moved forward on that. My understanding is that in order to sign a document like that, I would need JOC authorization.
Okay.
And Mr. Senate,
Yes.
I believe the $1,000 was Mr. Coughlin's check.
Okay, very
From
good.
his firm, not from the school.
This was one of those items that Fred mentioned earlier that have come up. We've talked about the testing of the soil that came up a couple months ago. It was not in the architectural package for the $600 and some $1,000. But in order for Chris to continue, he needed a couple things done. So this was one of those that came up. Fred had shared with me that they basically needed it, or they were kind of stopped dead in the tracks. So we shared kind of what we shared earlier in the study session, that we don't have approval to go forward. If you want to go ahead and continue and pay that, obviously it's something that we're going to have to pay if the project moves forward. So this was one of those. There was a couple items like this that would have stopped them a month or so ago, but they've went ahead and continued that to keep the project moving along so they can get their drawings done.
Sam, can I jump in for a second here?
Absolutely.
For the benefit of our newest JOC members, I'd just like to make sure that everybody keeps in mind that we're approaching this project in a non-standard format. The architect fee would typically be 6% of the overall project. And we did not want to commit all of that resource right up front. So we arranged with the architect to provide these drawings that we keep talking about on a fixed rate basis of $675,000. The byproduct of that are these little small things that would typically be rolled up under the project cost that we technically don't have approval for. For example, the $1,000 we're talking about now, and extra cost to have stormwater management system done, and so forth. So we're doing this in a non-standard approach. I want to make sure that everybody keeps that in mind. And we're watching these costs very carefully and bringing them back to the JOC so that we don't end up incurring expenses that no one's aware of until we have the bills on the table.
Thank you. So moving on to operations, number 12. We've got new business. We've got
Sam, I'm sorry to interrupt you again, but in light of that discussion, I do think it's appropriate if the board wanted to give Dr. Walker authorization to execute that developers agreement contingent on that everything moves forward, so we don't have to address it at a later point in time.
We can do that. I believe, if I recall seeing the emails, that he has already signed that, but if we need to have approval to do that. The problem was we didn't want to part with the money until it's approved. The director needed to sign that paper to get it to Summit Township.
Right. So why don't we ratify his action in getting that done, which confirms Dr. Walker's exercise of that option.
Very good. Is there a motion to ratify that action?
Yes, Dennis. So move.
Is there a second?
Second, Ed Rick Road.
Very good. Thank you. Any more discussion on that? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Very good. Thank you. Now let's move to operations. So we've got new business. And we have two motions under old business. A second to review those. This is included in here is closing of that PNC account, like we talked about, actually a couple accounts here we talked about in the foundation meeting.
Yes, that is correct, Sam. We do not have benefit accounts for the dental, the flexible spending, and the vision at Northwest Savings yet. Those are the accounts managed by BAI on our behalf. So we would be looking to, that motion would be looking to close the PNC and open Northwest Savings Bank accounts for BAI's use.
Transfer those funds over there. All right. We also have our calendar for the next year. It looks to be the same as what we've gone with this last year. It also includes our affirmative. We've made some changes to the emergency instructional time template, and that's included in here also. Fred, do you want to just highlight the changes, the one that I'm coming up with on that, if I'm in the right section here, is basically, if you recall back in the summertime, we voted to approve that once we went to a more restrictive type of education, that we would stay there until the end of the semester. And we're backing off of that now, just with how things are moving, with buildings and districts moving in and out depending on the virus rate in the building. We're moving away from that, leaving it to local control.
Yes, Sam, you're referring to the health and safety plan. The emergency instructional timesheet is a separate issue.
Okay.
And that's just a standardized PDE requirement. We are modifying the health and safety plan to give more flexibility, as Sam described. I'm not going to re-describe it, Sam. You accurately captured everything there.
That's B1 under old business, which would still be part of this motion. Any questions on any of those items? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the sections of old and new business here.
Mahoney, so moved.
Is there a second?
Dennis, second.
I heard Dennis there for a second. Any discussion on any of these points?
Sam, what was the final number from PennDOT on the roundabout?
I think I can address that, Mr. Ing, if you want me to.
Absolutely.
Just to refresh everyone's recollection, we had an initial offer from PennDOT, which was reviewed at a prior meeting. And at that prior meeting, you gave authority for Dr. Walker and myself, Tim Senate, to proceed to prepare a response to that initial offer, which we did. We prepared that response by letter of November 20th to PennDOT. In that letter, there were several components to our counter offer. The first would be that the area that has been condemned by a declaration of taking filed by PennDOT was 2.445 acres. We proposed that the fair market appraisal per acre for that property was $12,385 per acre. We acquired that number based on two components. Number one, a prior appraisal of our property, which we used to sell a portion of it. And second, a portion of the PennDOT appraisal that in regard to property, which we determined was most similar to our property, and that being in the $12,000 per acre range. So the fair market value we proposed for the 2.445 acres to be condemned was $30,281. In addition, as part of PennDOT's proposal, they suggested that certain items had to be modified, like the driveway and other things, damages that we would suffer by their actions. And they valued those damages to be at $19,500, which we did not dispute, and felt that that was an appropriate amount. The last item that we considered in the counteroffer was Dr. Walker at the last meeting talked about the construction of a wall for the safety of our students who would use the front yard. We went out and acquired various proposals in regard to that wall, both dirt and a brick wall construction. The maximum cost of that wall construction would have been in the amount of $40,031. So our total counter offer to back to PennDOT was $89,812. And we also indicated that we would anticipate that in accordance with the condemnation laws, that they would reimburse us for any attorney's fees, architect fees, or other similar costs up to the amount of $4,000. So that was our counteroffer. PennDOT now has responded to that counteroffer in regard to those elements. First, it has accepted our determination of value for the property at the $12,385 per acre. So that equals the $30,281 amount. So they've agreed to that. Second, they've obviously agreed to the $19,500 for the damages which they assessed would be incurred as a result of their actions. Third, they added additional $435 for damages for the temporary construction easement, which was not previously assessed. And then last, without referencing the wall itself, they just increased their offer to an additional $10,000. So the total offer on the table is $60,216. And that is the amount that's in the resolution that is before the JOC today. Any questions in regard to the scenario?
The odds that we'll get anything better than that are slim to none.
I think that the offer that the PennDOT has provided us probably is their last offer based on my impression. And if we don't accept it, then I think they would probably push us toward a board of view situation, which obviously would result in incurring additional costs, which we're trying to avoid.
Understood. Thank you, Tim.
Any other questions on this or any other part of this motion?
Tim, Mr. Senate, now with this offer, PennDOT will move the dirt to where the proposed wall is going to go?
No, John, they did not agree to any construction activities at all. nor did they agree to participate in the wall itself. They only offered an additional $10,000 as a monetary compensation. So if the JOC wants to proceed forward with the wall, I mean, obviously the cost of that wall will have to be modified. But the only amount that PennDOT's willing to pay for that is $10,000 if we want to use it for the wall, and whether or not the JOC wants to construct that wall or not is a question.
So whoever might put up that wall is going to have to dig and provide whatever soil removal and all that as part. And did you say that the 40,000 would have to be modified upward because of that estimated cost of the wall?
I guess that's the question to the JOC. PennDOT's only offer is an additional $10,000. We know that the estimate for the wall as originally drafted was in the amount of $40,000. So it's one fourth of the amount. Okay. But that wall design, included a concrete wall with 2 pillars on each side and a mounded back with dirt on the back of the mound. So, I mean, that was the maximum price. There were 2 prices there, different options there, but we used the maximum amount in order to make the counteroffer.
Okay. Okay.
So the best thing on that is wait till they get their construction done. They're not going to do anything for us anyways. Get it done, see where we're at, what it looks like, and then proceed from there. It's difficult to make any decisions right now about that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the real decision right now is, are we satisfied with the amount of money they've offered to date? And whether we think we should pursue it further or take it and let it go.
Thank you, Tim.
If we pursued it any further, the estimate on legal fees that we may or may not get back would only go up. Is that accurate?
That's the key. I mean, if we ended up going to a board review, you're now then going to incur attorney's fees costs. You're going to incur appraisal costs. You remember we used an old appraisal in order to get them up to that value.
Right.
And then plus in order to try to justify our counteroffer, we used people from a construction company to give us estimates, and they would have to come in and testify as to, the necessity of that wall and everything like that. So I think the cost of pursuing it further is prohibitive.
Yes.
I defer to Dr. Walker if he has any additional comments.
Dennis, if there is any fill there, is there option to say that we will and think we can use it? Can we accept the fill for the bank if for a wall, so we don't have to buy dirt, haul dirt away and bring dirt back?
Dennis, that was the original plan, and that was what proposed. They're going to certainly have to take several truckloads, probably on the order of 100 plus truckloads of material out of here, and they're going to have to pay for that. So it would be in their best interest to just truck it over to the edge of that wall and dump it, and we could straighten it out later.
However, they have not agreed to that, just so everybody's clear.
I concur.
Yeah. And whether that's an agreement with PennDOT or that's a side agreement with the ultimate contractor who would do that, and whether PennDOT will allow that contract, PennDOT contracts with contractors are very specific. So that might be something we could work out after the fact.
Yeah, I know you can, because you can apply for fill you can put an application in from fill from PennDOT that you will accept it, but they have to have a location and dump it and everything like that. And that has to be filled out prior to you receiving fill. Then, and precise where you're going to drop the dirt. So that would be something that I would be willing to accept, but we had to fill out paperwork for that.
I think that, Dennis, I think that would be separate from the proposed resolution that we're talking about tonight.
Absolutely. But I'm just saying that we have to put that in mind. So when it comes closer, we have to there's applications that you have to fill out just to receive dirt from PennDOT. And you have to say, and draw locations where you're going to dump your dirt at. And they're not responsible for their trucks backing into your yard and putting big divots in it.
Dr. Walker understands we want that to a certain extent. We probably don't want it all, but he can work with them on the ground there as that construction starts and see what we can come up with. Any other discussion on this item or any other items in this motion? If not, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Very good, thank you. Financial items. The business manager's report, treasurer's report, statement of activities, checks, invoices, and Visa procurement card payment for October and November. Any questions on any of those?
Yes. Are there any questions on the reports? We're pretty well on track. If you look at the November business manager's report, as you can see, our revenue and expenses are pretty much on track to where we would expect to see them at that point in the fiscal year. During November, if you look at the bank account balances in the top of the November report, you'll see that we had a pretty nice increase in the amount of cash. And the reason for that is we have several COVID-related grants that we're participating in right now, and we received payments on those grants and it came in during the month of November. So that has increased the level of cash that we had available, and that over 300,000 of that 579,000 or $569,000 change was attributable to receiving the various grant proceeds coming into the bank accounts.
There's no further questions. I would entertain a motion to approve the financial items section of the agenda.
So moved, Terry Brink.
Second, Gilbert.
Thank you. Any more discussion or questions? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you. That carries. 14, we got administrative services and human resources. We probably should have a motion and a second, and then we can discuss or see if anybody has any questions on any of this.
I'll make a motion to approve the administrative and human resources section of the agenda. This is John.
I'll second Terry Brink.
All right. Any questions? All laid out there for us so we understand. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Carries. Thank you. Moving on to reports. We got our superintendent's report.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Ring. I don't have anything formal tonight, but I do want to take a moment on behalf of my colleagues that serve in the PAC to thank each and every one of you for your support back at your home districts as we continue to navigate the pandemic. And also, I certainly want to take a moment to wish each and every one of you a very happy and Merry Christmas.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Director's report.
Thank you, Mr. Ring. So my report here is divided into sections. We've discussed the roundabout at this point, and I believe we've addressed that matter. The renovation status, we had a conversation earlier this evening, and there was some conversation about a revised kitchen design, Originally, what we had asked for did not result in the preliminary drawings. We sent them back, and we've got that addressed now. There was a little bit of concern about the number of workstations and the square footage available. And we informed them that we would not have the ability to increase the size of the building, which is what they seem to have thought would be possible. Now, remember that the person doing the kitchen design is a subcontractor to Chris Coughlin. So Chris indicated that the contractor had X amount of space available and then just proceeded down the path of designing something that we couldn't make work. So we've got that addressed now. The plan is going to be here to get copies of the drawings as best as possible electronically available in PDF format to the renovation committee, hopefully before Christmas. And then shortly after the Christmas break, we'll call the meeting of the renovation committee together to review what Chris has put together. Again, this was a sizable piece of work. He delivered it about 3:30 this afternoon. So I'd leave my comments there. Any questions about the renovation at this point or about the roundabout? So that would bring us then to how we're operating in COVID. And our hybrid schedule has been working well. We did have a building closure based on the number of cases that were actually in the building. The superintendents and the JOC chair and I had conversations along with the Erie County Department of Health about the duration of the closure. And as the guidelines have changed, we've decided that we would be less restrictive in our health and safety plan, and you considered that and approved that tonight. The point of contention with the health and safety plan was the original plan said that we would not move from a more restrictive pattern of closure to a less restrictive in the same semester. We would wait till the end of the quarter actually to do that. And now what we're seeing is a need to be able to open and close the buildings more rapidly, dependent upon COVID cases in the building. So you've approved that. We've also got our emergency timeline plan approved tonight. And Sam, you'll have to sign that document and we need to mail that back to PDE. They contacted me again about that today. And any questions about our schedule or COVID in the building? And by the way, as of Monday, when we reopened, our schedule now assumes that we had 0 cases in the building. The clock resets. So at this point, we've got 1 probable, and we've got 1 in quarantine, and we've got 1 awaiting test results, but these people have not been in the building. Comments or questions about the schedule? Okay, I'm pleased to share with you that the Identigo organization has come and pulled their equipment out of here for us. And so that is final and complete now. And in terms of our operations, we are working on the electromechanical program. We have Principal Tarasovich and I participated in a Perkins audit this last couple of weeks. There were no findings, which is really a testament. And I want to call out Joe Tarasovich. His organizational skills with Perkins Assurances, which I have not taken over yet, were very, very well done. And we passed through an audit. This is not a normal, regularly scheduled audit, and we had no findings. So congratulations to Joe. Really want to say thank you. And our 339 audit, which we had described earlier, which is a 3-year audit, 3 to 5 year audit. PDE has postponed that for 1 year. We're going to continue to work on that with a completion date of March of 21, which is what we were originally scheduled for. And we're going to continue on that, even though we don't have to submit it until next year, because next year we have other major projects that we have to deal with, one of which is a comprehensive plan. And that's going to take some work. We also have a couple other projects with our degree program reapprovals. So we're on track. We're navigating the COVID storm as best we can. Our community has been very blessed in terms of not having major exposures, knock on wood. And our report here indicates that we're doing it as well as can be expected, thanks to a very strong leadership team and everyone chipping together. That concludes my report.
Any questions for Dr. Walker? If not, solicitor's report. Back to you, Tim.
Just one follow-up comment in regard to the PennDOT condemnation, the next steps. The next step, because this is condemnation of real property, which is actually owned by each individual school district, it does require each individual school district to approve a resolution, the substance of which is about the same as indicated in the JOC resolution. However, there will be two PennDOT agreements attached to the school district resolutions, which are going to be authorizing Dr. Walker to sign. So what I'm asking the JOC members I will forward the resolution on to each superintendent of each school district to ask them to put it on their agenda for your next meeting, and probably in January, and ask each JOC member to recommend approval of that resolution so we can finalize this transaction. Any questions?
Did you send a copy of this to the JOC members?
Yes, I'll send it to the superintendent with each JOC member, and so you'll have all the information.
Tim, when is the appropriate time to discuss with each board then? There's been discussion, of course, before we knew of the amount of money. Now that we know the amount of money, when is the appropriate time for them to designate that? What I'd like to suggest we do is keep it as part of the renovation project here, instead of cutting 11 checks back to districts and all that. Is now the appropriate time to talk about that, or is it later?
It can be now or later. I mean, I know you have a lot on your agenda tonight, but if the JOC also wants to make a recommendation as to how the funds would be used, and that we can include that as part of the resolution, I can modify the resolution and include that. That way, you're taking care of it on all, one big swoop.
I think that makes more sense, instead of approving it and then next month going back and saying, oh, can we keep it all here? If there's no objections, that probably needs to be a motion of recommendation.
I agree. We would need a motion that the $60,216 will be retained by the Erie County Technical School to be used for the project, to be attributed to each school district in accordance with whatever formula is in existence at the time.
Somebody like to make that motion?
Sam Gilbert makes that recommendation motion.
Is there a second?
Nicole, second.
Any more discussion on that, or any discussion on that?
So are we going to go with like Tim said, the percentage of each school district? If, let's say we go with McDowell's new proposal, they would get less money. And are they going to fight and tooth for us when they do that? It won't be that much money because it's not super amount. Is that correct, Tim? Is that what you said about the percentage of
finance? Yeah, well, at the present time, because we're talking about real property, it would be not, it's not based on the operational formula, but will be based on the capital formula. And so at the present time, it would be the present capital formula. If that formula changes before we can get all the resolutions approved, then obviously then we will use that new formula. I just wanted to give the option of whatever formula is in place.
That's good. Thank you.
Tim, what about won't the boards have to approve any kind of financial issue like that? I mean, if the check is going to be written to 11 different districts, shouldn't the boards have input into how it's used?
You're right, John, and that's why I think what we're seeking is a recommendation for the JOC, which I'll include in the resolution to be addressed when you approve the overall PennDOT settlement. So I'll add it right there. And
Okay, but I mean, if one district says, no, we want to do something else, does that negate the whole thing?
it does
I mean,
present.
I don't,
I need every district to approve the condemnation package. And that's why I think if we fall, we're only talking about $60,000 at the present time. And the idea is that it would be used back for the project, or maybe it doesn't have to be the project. Can it just be used by the technical school for capital purposes?
Capital projects, period.
Yeah, capital projects. It doesn't have to be this project. It can be just capital projects in the general. And
Right.
that formula works.
Okay, but let's say it's contingent on board approval.
You're correct. I mean, each
Right.
board to approve it,
Okay.
just
All
like
right.
the condemnation. Each board has to
Yeah.
approve it.
Yes.
All this
Okay.
motion is a recommendation. It's a recommendation motion. We're suggesting so that we can all agree,
Right.
but everybody has to agree. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you. That carries. And not to cut you off, was there anything else under the solicit?
Nothing further. Happy holidays. Happy New Year.
Thank you. Same to you.
Yep, same thing.
Principals report. Back to Joe.
Good evening, everybody. There's just a few things I'd like to bring your attention off my report. The first one is the recruitment visitations down there. Again, it's been a unique year, but I'm so grateful for your sending school personnel, your guidance counselors, and some teachers in some cases helped us do the recruiting this year. It was a great collaboration project. And so once again, kudos to your principals and your guidance counselors for supporting us with this recruitment schedule this year. Below that is the open house. We went virtual this year. And once again, I was very nervous about this situation. But again, I'm very proud of what we have accomplished here. When you take a look at it, we had 119 students engage with us that evening. And again, if you look at last year, we had 150 students. So again, I know there's a decrease there, but for the first year to be virtual and to have that many students pop in with us, we had a student visit every one of our labs, and we had a student from each district. So again, when we looked at those numbers, I'm very proud. I set the goal, I told my staff prior to the virtual open house, I was hoping to 80 to 90. I thought it'd be a great evening. So again, it really was a big success in my opinion. Dr. Walker already mentioned about the Perkins audit, and I thank him for his support, and all the staff's report helped me, Terry Burchard, and all the many people that work as a team to help me accomplish that. So I was really happy with that. Finally, on part of my report there, Jeff, if you go back to what's underneath my report, there's a different look that I wanted to give you on the enrollment here at the Erie County Tech School. And with this presentation, I'd like to show you on the bottom down there of this report. Folks, from the beginning, the mentality here was, when we broke this up into an A-B schedule, was to have about approximately 25 to 30% of the students in a session. And that's what we've accomplished. I mean, if you take a look at the 2 afternoon sessions, we have 190 students, approximately a little over that. That represents about 28% of our population in this building. If our teachers stay true to our plan, the students have much square footage here that I planned out for them. So again, I thought this was a different way to show you our enrollment and what we've tried to do here to make our student population and our staff safe here at the Erie County Tech School. So that's just a different glimpse at the enrollment here. But again, with the mentality of COVID and the A-B schedule and AM, PM idea. I wish you Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Again, safety and health to everybody again. So thank you so much for listening to me this evening.
Joe, thank you, and thank you for all your work with that. And Dr. Walker, thank you. Obviously, everybody knows it's been a trying fall, and we're not even to winter yet, but it's been trying. It's difficult. Dr. Walker copies me on, I'm sure not all, but a whole lot of the different emails, and it's been difficult, but they're handling it as each school district. Every school district is handling it just a little different. The one thing that I even mentioned to Joe the other day in a conversation is, you know, we're the technical school. It is really difficult to do technical training in the true sense of the word remotely. You can do some things, but you can't do hands-on to the extent that you know is expected of our teachers to do that, and our students. And so everybody really has pulled together and done a phenomenal job. The superintendents you know, gave their support to get the students back as soon as we could. Obviously there's restrictions on what we can do, but I appreciate everybody working together. It hasn't been easy, but we've tried to make the best of it, and we appreciate the staff doing you know what they need to do to continue to educate our students the best that we can under these circumstances. So thank you. I think that concludes the reports. And 16, I don't see anything new there unless I'm missing something. 17 has our supplemental reports, and the other ones that you can, hopefully you've already looked through those. Is there any other JOC comments? Now we have a couple minutes here. We want to take a little break to allow everybody else that's going to be joining us in, but is there any other things just that the JOC needs to talk about? Any comments or remarks? If not, keep your cameras on and all that as much as you want. I guess you could go dark here. Don't leave the session. We're going to keep open, and we're not going to adjourn until we're finished here with the discussion. But we'll take a little break here and come back in about 13-14 minutes, and that'll give everybody a chance to let those in and be ready for the discussion. So thank you. Jeff, does that give you a good enough time?
It does. We have approximately 7 people in the webinar from the business managers, and I'm assuming they may be doubled up with their superintendents and possibly board representatives from their districts. What I'm going to do is promote each of those individuals that pre-registered that I recognize on my list into the meeting so that they can turn their cameras and their microphones on as they choose to participate in this meeting with open conversation rather than funneling them through the chat. As discussed with both you, Sam, and Mr. Sennett, we'll review kind of the protocol for how to do this with so many participants.
Mr. Sennett's willing to do that, right? Because he did such a great job the first time. I'm sure he is. He's just on break now.
Jeff, I don't see any additional registrants since I gave you that list.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't know how many little video screens we're going to end up with here, but I will let Mill Creek let us know how they'd like us to present, whether they want the presentation on the screen or their camera on the screen.
Is there any way to put what school district all these people are from?
Let
On
me see
there?
if I can rename them on the screen to do so.
Even just like an initials, like HS or HCSD or MTSD?
Aaron, you're my guinea pig. I'm going to rename you right now. I don't think there's enough room to give you positions. Some are superintendents, some are business managers.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
I have a message from Dr. Kincaid. He's catching us on Zoom, on YouTube. He cannot get in for a multitude of reasons to the Zoom, so he'll be listening on YouTube. Mr. Fox, you are here twice. Would you like me to name one of those sessions somebody other than yourself?
Sure. I'm here with my board president, Nick Mobilia. We're actually in the same session.
Jeff, can you put the all the screens up there so we can see who's all in there instead of scrolling down through them?
You won't see them on the screen per se unless they have their video turned on. Everybody that has arrived has been promoted to a panelist so that they can participate both audio and video. We have 37 total panelists at this time. I believe all business managers, if not with others, are here, and several superintendents are here. But as Mr. Fox mentioned, and maybe some others, they may have multiple people sitting at one camera. I do believe we now have every business manager here.
And Tim, you're prepared to do our little your little spiel at the beginning there again, is that correct? On your protocol.
That's correct.
You did so good the first time.
That's right. Thank you.
I know I'm bumping it by a couple of minutes, but why don't you go ahead and start that? That way we'll be ready to go at 8 o'clock.
Okay, very good. This is Tim Sennett. I'm the solicitor for the Erie County Technical School. I just need to review our virtual meeting communications protocol for everyone. This is a public virtual meeting streamed to the public on YouTube Live. So if you are a joint operating committee member or a school board member or a business manager or a superintendent, we would ask you to keep your camera active and your microphone muted during this portion of the proceedings, unless you want to make a statement. And at that time, if you wish to make a statement, then we would ask you to please identify yourself by your name, your school district, and your position, and then proceed forward and give your comment in regard to the topic at hand. The other option, if you choose not to make a public comment, there is a chat room feature in Zoom or where you can make a statement there, or you can list a question which will be posed to the Joint Operating Committee by the Zoom host. And I believe that's the protocol we want to follow, Mr. Ring.
Very good. Thank you, Tim. And thank you all for taking time out of your schedules tonight. Obviously, I wish we could have done this in person, but that's just not possible right now. But thanks for taking some time. And I know it's getting late, and JOC members have already been here for a couple hours now. So thank you to them. I'm Sam Ring from Northwestern, JOC chair. And I just want to start off by saying I've been a part of the JOC less than half of the time that Mr. Bugsby's been a part of it, but better part of 15 years that I've been around, and we've been talking about a renovation to the building for all of those years. And I think it probably precedes me, but I think the one thing that we can agree on to start with is that something needs to be done, and probably sooner rather than later. So with that, I think what we'll do here is we're going to listen to Mill Creek's presentation, and I think that's going to be from their business manager. And then we'll open it up for conversation and discussion and see if we can come to either a consensus or at least a path forward on what we want to do going forward. So with that, who's going to take off there? Is it business manager or superintendent?
Sam, I think I'll take the initial part of the presentation. Hello, my name is John DePlacido, and I'm a member of the Mill Creek Township School Board. I'm also JOC Vice Chairman this year, and I'd like to thank you for attending and listening to our proposal to change the formula for capital outlay. And also with us tonight from Mill Creek is Dr. Roberts, our superintendent, and Mr. O'Toole, our business manager, and others I'm sure that are on the line. So again, thank you for attending and listening. I'd like to start out with a little bit of history on the formula and on the school. And I'll start out, this school was opened in 1968 and served 19 school districts. The State Public School Building Authority was the original owner of the facility. At that time, this entity determined how the cost to both maintain the operational cost and future capital expenditures, building facility upgrades, were to be determined. They based individual district costs on a formula that used information from the State Tax Equalization Board during the preceding year, including the total valuation of all participating districts. This was apparently the standard way that was used in these kind of situations, which involved multiple districts and owned by the authority. The building was subsequently deeded over to the school districts upon the satisfaction of all Erie County Tech School debt payments to the state. Because of the transfer of ownership to the districts, the individual districts owned the building on a percentage based on the original formula. Since the state authority does not own Erie County Tech School, it is now necessary to turn to the portion of the Pennsylvania School Code regarding Area Vocational Technical Board is the term, for guidance on authority and duties. This guidance allows modification of the operational capital outlay formula contained within the agreement by the JOC if all the districts choose to do so. The original formula was used for many years, and because Mill Creek is on the higher side of district valuation compared to other districts, our portion of the operational billing, the yearly budget, was highest and based on not on how many students we sent, but rather this generic formula. The operational formula was changed by the JOC in 2009 to a more realistic formula based on a 3-year rolling average of student enrollment. This was accomplished by agreeing to stretching out the change over several years. This allowed all districts to start budgeting their new contributions over several years, which was deemed acceptable by the JOC. The capital formula was not changed at that time, and that is what we were proposing to be changed in a similar manner at this time. Presently, there are 6 tech schools out of the 11 that we contacted who have already changed both their operational and capital formula from the original formula as shown above to be a more realistic, reasonable formula, which is similar to our operational formula that we currently use. Districts agreed to develop architectural and engineering designs and allocate costs based on existing capital outlay formula. And the JOC has agreed not to spend over $32.5 million on this project, which keeps us up to date to this point. I would now like to turn over the presentation to Mr. Aaron O'Toole, our business manager, for further discussion.
Good evening. I was under the impression that, can we share the presentation that was provided so we can walk along with that as I present?
Sure.
Jeff?
I'm working, it was in the amendments.
Yes, but I think there you go. Thank you.
It was, the mouse was jumping on me. Sorry, guys. So I can walk with you, Aaron.
Yeah, can you just, yeah, right there. Mr. DePlasto explained the history. He just walked through that for all of us. Could you go to the next slide, please? So good evening. Tonight I'll be walking you through a few slides to explain our proposed funding formula and why we're requesting a change. The current slide represents the existing formula. These are the values used to allocate out the architectural cost already. As you can see here in the second column, it's based on the 2017 market values to come up with what our percentage share is. From there, we allocated out the 32.5 million based on that percentage share. I know an email was distributed this evening that showed a comparison between the 2017 and the 2019 market values, but for the purpose of this presentation, I'm going to continue to use the 2017 market value. If you could go to the next slide, please. We are proposing a two-phase approach to pay for this project. First, for the first $20.3 million spent, we're proposing to use the existing formula as it is today. Again, this percentage share that you see here in the second column is based on the 2017 market values. And that's for the first $20.3 million. And under the cost section, you'll see what that allocation is distributed out to based by district. The 20.3 million represents 63% of the total 32.5 million cost. If you could go to the next slide, please. For the second phase, or the payment of the remaining 12.2 million, we're requesting that the allocation be based on a 15-year participation trend. You'll notice that the percentage share is significantly different compared to the market value because this is based on a 15-year participation trend, for which again is allocated out into the cost by district, as you can see on the right-hand side. This is the 12.2 million does represent 37% of the total project cost. You can go into the next slide. It shows the difference between the existing formula and the proposed formula. So as you can see, I've showed the existing formula percentages, the proposed formula total percentage of the total project cost, what the existing formula would have been in the total allocation of the 32.5 million. And then what the proposed formula would allocation comes out to be, and then the variance. So again, I just want to make sure everybody understands that the proposed formula is basically taking the first 63% of the $32.5 million and allocating that out based on the existing formula. The remaining 37% of that 32.5 million would be based and allocated off of a 15-year participation trend. That gives you your total value that you see here in the proposed formula. And it does cause significant variances within the districts, as you can see on the right-hand side. If you can go to the next slide, please. We are proposing to change the formula based on two factors. Number one, as we'd already talked about and I showed in the participation, our market value based on the percentage allocation based on the 2017 market values is at 36%. When you look at a 15-year participation trend, it's comes down to 21%. So there's a significant difference between what we're using compared to what we're being, what we would pay for. Excuse me. Second thing is I want to look at our savings account. So our fund balance is really the savings each district might have. This slide here represents the 2018 fund balances for each participating district. I know it's a little difficult to see, but the bars represent the total cost that each district has in its general fund balance. Those blue dots represent what represent the percentage of expenditures that dollar value is. So for Mill Creek, for example, we have roughly 15% of our total expenditures in our fund balance. It is the lowest out of all the participating districts, significantly lower. And you can see that blue dot is much higher, as represented on the right-hand side. You can see what percentage that represents. You can go to the next slide, please. So in conclusion, we are proposing that the funding formula be adjusted for this current project based on an average participation trend for the past 15 years, which ours is 21%, and we have less of a savings compared to other districts. The proposed formula would equate out to being Mill Creek's percentage being 30.4% of the total cost. The total cost must not exceed 32.5, which has already been decided upon by all the districts. In moving forward, the articles of agreement for Operation Capital Outlay would be adjusted to using a 15-year participation trend formula. You can move to the next slide, please. So based on giving a real rough timeline, today we wanted to discuss the proposed capital outlay formula. In January, we would wish to the JOC to vote on it. And then in January/February, we would ask the districts to vote on the proposed formula change as well. At this time, I would open it up for discussion or any questions.
Well, I'll start with a couple of questions just on the overall numbers you used. Why the numbers in coming up with the amount for the existing formula? I mean, where did you come up with that? And the 20,312,500 will be now. It just, what's the background on those numbers?
Yeah. So how I arrived at that is I basically took 50% of the total cost and I said, we'll pay based on the existing formula. And then I took the next 25% of the existing cost and I split that into 50%. So I used 50% of that next 25% would be based on the existing formula, and the next 25% would be based on the participation trend, which would leave the remaining quarter to being based on the participation trend. So when you netted it all together, that's just what it worked out to being.
Thank you.
Sam, I have a question, please.
Go for it.
I've been on the JOC board now for just a little over 2 years, I believe. And if I remember correctly, my very first meeting was the night we voted on the architect firms. So 2+ years we've put into this project, and what, $700,000 already spent? We're ready to go to bid, proposal, and everything else. Now all of a sudden, this is coming to a head at this point in the project. I don't understand the timing of this.
Are you asking I'm sorry, are you asking why the timing of now compared to?
Yeah, why wasn't this formula brought up 2 years ago? It was the same formula 2 years ago. When this project, and as Sam mentioned earlier, they've been talking about renovations for 15 years.
I can't answer as to why that wasn't brought up in the JOC and or with the superintendents, as I wasn't part of all those meetings. I know not the reason why we're bringing it up now is because it is about to go to bid, and we feel that the formula should be changed, and we wanted to request that it would be.
Sam, this is Terry Brink. Can I ask a question, please?
Sure.
My question is, one, most school districts, I don't know about Mill Creek, but most school districts have been saving for this particular project for some years now and have set up capital fund balances, what have you. The fact that Mill Creek didn't is kind of Mill Creek's problem. But my question is, why is it acceptable for Mill Creek to dictate to districts like Girard, Northeast, Northwestern, Union City, Wattsburg, these smaller school districts, Iroquois, for instance, these small school districts who don't have extra funds to put out for something, to all of a sudden be expected to pay, it looks like $250,000, $500,000 that they didn't plan on because your people didn't have the foresight to plan appropriately.
We have been planning and we have some money set aside for this project. I guess the counter to that is we're only, I mean, over the last 15 years, our participation percentage has only been 21%, but we're being requested to pay 36. So we are saving and preparing to pay for the project. It's just finding what's fair and equitable is what we're asking, and what we're proposing is more or less what I'm stating.
And what I'll say, and I'm sure you know this, because I did attend one of your school board meetings. I do own property in Mill Creek and I do pay taxes in Mill Creek. And I am not by any means asking for my taxes to go up, although I do know that you did you say that you're going to stay under the index when you do raise taxes this year. But it would seem to me that a township and a school district as large as Mill Creek would be able to afford this money to pay for very much needed repairs to this school district more than a district like Union City or a district like Iroquois. Why is burdening them so much more important?
I don't know that anybody's telling anybody what to do. We're requesting this evening a change in the formula. We can go back as far as you like and say this and say that, but we're at 36% of this project, and we owe it to our taxpayers to at least ask for a change of this formula. I understand everybody has their issues this year, and so do we. When you say we can afford it, I'm not sure all the taxpayers would agree with that. So that's kind of the issue.
I didn't say you could afford it. I said it would be easier for you to afford it than somebody like Union City.
Okay.
Yeah, just let me, I think it just, I don't want to get it lost. And the market value is an interesting, because that's what the formula is on, is our market value. What that means is if Mill Creek raises taxes a mill, what kind of money do you generate? You know off the top of your head, Aaron?
Oh, it's roughly 500,000. Yeah.
Okay, so you take a district like that, the same mill at Northwestern, we're getting, pocket change compared to that. That's the market value. So I understand that you're not fully utilizing seats that are possible, but yet across Erie County, all 11 school districts, the formula is fair to the point where, because it's based on market value, you've got the same opportunity to raise funds at the same level across the board. I don't think it's, first of all, I don't have an issue with changing the formula. I do have an issue with changing the formula now, to get the best bang for our buck and to be able to build and have money left over for equipment. January, February is when we need to put this out to bid. That's now when you're asking us to consider this, which puts us into probably realistically June or July, which realistically now is going to delay the whole project for a whole year when this isn't new. So that's my biggest beef. Is the first question I think Steve asked is, I think it's something we can look at. And I think if we went fully to this, I think we can come to some agreement at some point, but this late date now to throw a monkey wrench into it, it's, I think, unreasonable. I understand why you want to ask. But that's my 2 cents. The other part that I would take exception with is, you know, it's true that a lot of districts have been planning some for this, but, you know, every school board has choices in how they spend their money, as Mill Creek does. You guys have a beautiful athletic facility, okay? If Northwestern had that same athletic facility, our fund balance would be percentage-wise probably where yours is, okay? That's a choice you made. I don't have a problem with that, but you're coming saying, here's why we want to change the formula. That's not fair, just because, you know, we've put, you know, different things ahead of other things in what we funded over the past few years. So those are my 2 thoughts. I'll be quiet now and let the rest of you ask questions or share.
This is Dennis Lessing from George School District. I was just wondering how many children from Mill Creek attended the college facility out to the Erie County Tech School. I know a few does. And a lot of it is the guidance counselor promoting the Erie County Tech School for the students and preparing them their way to go there, opportunities. I know people that went to Mill Creek, and then after they graduated, they went to different school districts, different paid schools, and get the same education they get to Erie County Tech School. And I feel it's the enrollment is all due to your guidance counselors, not necessarily to the enrollment of the students. And I think it's done all school districts, but in Girard, we promoted it highly. So our participation increased because of the opportunities. So that's the reason my feelings on that subject for the reason enrollment's still down for Mill Creek. Thank you.
Okay, let me just make a couple comments here. It looks like Mill Creek has a significant amount of debt there, assigned debt. But you look at Northwestern, they have a very large bar there that is committed fund balance. We at General McLean had a significant fund balance also at one time. And the way we looked at it one day was we said, what would happen if we took most of our fund balance and paid off our debt, our bond issues? We ended up, to a surprise, because we went ahead and we paid a significant amount of money to reduce it. And a year later, the state came back and said, hey, we forgot to take out our portion, ours being the state's portion of the bill, which was about, I think it was 32%, Rick, something like that. Oh, you got to mute. You're unmuted, Rick.
I wasn't superintendent at the time, so I don't remember the amount, but I remember that issue.
Well over $1 million check we received in 2 installments from the state, just to reduce our fund balance and pay off our debt, basically. So that's one reason why we are in a favorable position right now, is because we didn't squirrel away all that money. We went ahead and paid our debt and used that debt to help balance the budget for years. And all I'm saying is, and I'm not going to blame the current your current administration or your previous administration, but the administration before that did a very bad job of analyzing and controlling your spending. And that's why you don't have a lot right now. And what else bothers me is you used a 15-year peg as a reference issue, where in fact it moves every 3 years. So I think what you need to do is update your data to show what the existing costs are rather than looking 15 years behind.
And the reason why I use 15 years is I was trying to match the life of an asset up to the length of that debt, right? It makes sense to use more of an annual basis change in participation for an operating formula, but we're talking about a capital formula. Well, this investment should be good for 20, 25 years. And I didn't think it would materially change using the 15 years compared to using a 15 or a 20-year average. I mean, that was the reason why I chose to use 15 years as compared to using the participation as it currently exists.
Well, one of the biggest problems when we're trying to build a different building is because everybody says, and the state says, you can't rebuild for 25 years. So everybody's, you know, I'm not pointing my finger at Milker. I'm just saying this in general. Everybody's saying, hey, it's 25 years. We can go get some more money from the state, even though they didn't need it. So some of these school districts really did that. And they didn't need to go ahead and totally refurbish. I think you guys did a good job by not spending $125 million that you got for new buildings, but you did a really good job of refurbishing your high school area. You know, I congratulate you on that. But then you had money you had to turn back, I think, because you had to use it within a certain amount of time or lose it. So I think the problem with Mill Creek in particular is the fact that 2 superintendents ago, it was a bad administration job.
Yeah, I guess to kind of summarize that is that superintendent 2 or that administration 2 administrations ago. I mean, I could tell you when I walked in the door, we had a negative fund balance 7 years ago. So in terms of saving, I can't speak on behalf of predecessors. I can tell you how we've got to the point we are now. And we are at 15% of our total expenditures in our fund balance. We've done that. We've closed 2 buildings. We've eliminated programs, programs that even have 100 kids in it. We've sold those buildings to get to the position that we're in now. And that's only at 15% of our total expenditures. I understand that it was completely mismanaged in the past. However, we're very diligent with our money. And part of that also is, as we're talking tonight, we're talking about our ability to generate money moving forward. And as everyone, I don't know if everybody looked at the difference between that 2017 and that 2019 market value that was sent out this evening. But as you can see, our market values, they only changed by 1.5%. The only district that's lower than that is Fort LaBeouf. Everyone else is growing. We have LECOM continuing to buy up property that's a nonprofit. We have the mall, who we have a lot of assessment appeals against. I mean, COVID's one reason, but online shopping is impacting their revenue. We don't know what the state's going to do in terms of if they add sales tax. So we have some things that we're considering long-term, which is the only reason why I brought up the savings account, the fund balance, just so we're all on the same page with that. So we do have our concerns about our going concern long-term, as I'm sure most of your districts do. But, you know, as you look at those assessment values over the last 2 years, what's the primary driving factors of that for Fort LaBeouf and Mill Creek on Peach Street there? I mean, they're not growing like they were.
Yeah, but the other problem there that is existent not only with Mill Creek, but with a couple other districts, is the fact that the buildings that are building are getting a tax relief because of what they are, a hospital. And they're not a nonprofit. They're making money hand over fist.
And Sam, and talk about not building. There's not really a construction boom in Union City going on right now. I can tell you that. I'm guessing my house might have been one of the last new ones built in Union City, and that was 20 plus years ago. And I want to go back to the enrollment figures like Dennis mentioned. I I don't know what Mill Creek's enrollment is in 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, but I'm guessing it's 4, 5, 6 times the amount as Union City's. So, again, touching on what Dennis said, why isn't there more kids from Mill Creek coming to VOTEC? And if this proposal for funding formula does pass with any kind of change based on participation rate, what happens next year if Mill Creek, all of a sudden, they got a group of kids and they're up at 30, 35%? Based on the number of students they have, that's possible.
Well, Steve, I think that's a good point. I guess the question for Mill Creek is, obviously this is their proposal they're putting forward, but are they open to maybe looking at the population of 10th, 11th, and 12th grade over a period of years, our enrollment, high school enrollment, and then facilitating maybe using that as part of the formula here instead of just a participation at the tech school. Is that
right? Because
a possibility?
Every student in 10th, 11th, and 12th grade has the opportunity to come to ECTS. Every single student.
My only response to that, Steve and Sam, is if you do that, if you say that this is going to be strictly based on the enrollment, my fear would be that some schools may just decide to stop promoting ECTS as an opportunity to their students. And then we will be in real trouble because we will have lower enrollment numbers overall just so that they can pay less.
Okay, but there's one.
Terry, I'm not saying I want to go with that enrollment, Terry. I agree with what you just said. I'm just saying what happened. Mill Creek is using enrollment, a low enrollment, to up the ante. And I was, counter offering that, saying, all right, what happens if your enrollment goes up? Your student body, that enrollment will go up any given time.
Yeah, I understand, but what I'm saying is if we just automatically say that we're going to base everybody's payment to the ECTS based on their enrollment, that's going to adversely affect the ECTS, in my opinion.
Agreed, 100%.
Terry,
Agreed.
You're making the exact argument that we had to wrestle with in 2009 when we changed the formula away from this. It was the same for participation. And the fear was if we went to a per pupil cost, any district can then stop promoting to the same level. So what you're talking about is fear. What I suggested as a possibility, and obviously we got this proposal this afternoon, so haven't looked at any numbers, but it would be an interesting thought based on what Steve's saying, is not looking at participation in ECTS, but look at our high school enrollment for 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, the potential students that can come to ECTS, and then base part of the formula on what your enrollment is at your high school, not at what you actually send out to the technical school. That would balance that number a little bit so that we don't get a spike in participation that would, after a project, we bring out a new program on drones and everybody's excited and we get a whole lot of people, where are they going to come from? There's a way to figure that out. I remember, we were discussing that in 2009. I don't remember how it happens, but there is a way that each district basically has the equal number, I believe, for each program.
Okay, thank you. I didn't understand that, Sam. Thank you.
Sam, I have a comment from the chat. May I bring it to the group?
Absolutely.
The comment was, why is the fact that Mill Creek did not save for this project over the last 12 plus years a reason we should pay more? Why is Mill Creek's decision not to promote tech ed a reason to change the formula? How much has Mill Creek's delay over the last 5 years added to the cost of the project?
Hey, could I just make a comment? Sure. Thank you, Sam. I appreciate that. I I don't know that it's productive for us to critique how Mill Creek has spent or not spent their money, or how they choose to promote the tech school. I don't think that's going to solve the problem at hand. I mean, there's really only a couple questions here. Are we going to agree to, can we get all 11 school boards to agree to change the formula or not? And I would submit, just based on discussion with some other superintendents, that that is probably not going to happen. That's a long shot. So the second question I think we have to consider is, at what price point can Mill Creek get on board with a project to update the tech school, given the current articles of agreement and their current contribution level? It seems to me that $32 million is outlandish at this point, and it's way out of reach because of my aforementioned reasons. So, maybe we could toss that around, or if anybody else wants to comment, but I think we got to focus on those two things. That's the path forward.
Thank you.
Well, I think what the problem is going to be, you got 6 districts who's going to have a variance that is negative, which means they're going to be spending more money. You look at Union City, their existing formula is $813,000. That's going to go to 1.2 million. It's a 40% increase in their fee. I think they're going to vote no. I think there's another 4 in there that's going to vote no. All we need is 1 to vote no, and the project's dead.
And that's my point, Jim. I think we need to dial back this down to a reality level.
Sam,
I agree with you. I agree with you 100%.
Sam, could I make a comment?
Go for it.
We started the meeting with my JOC, Mr. Gilbert, asking a question because our school board continually follows up with us and asks us why the change in the resolution from a little over a year ago. And that's something that I know our board is going to want. I understand the formula discussion and all of that, but I think a number of districts passed a resolution based on a formula, and we were good to go a year and a half. So we just need an answer on when and where did we change the route, because that is what the rest of our school board is charging us to answer. Thank you.
Correct. I agree with that. When we took the vote to even support the $600,000 to get this moving, everybody was assuming that all their fees were going to be the same as it has been in the past. Now, all of a sudden, some are getting a 50% increase. And that makes me nervous because it doesn't affect General McLean that much, but some of these other school districts are going to say no when they vote.
I appreciate that. Let me just ask a question about, probably some people refer to it as the elephant in the room. It sounds like, and obviously not going, we've heard a proposal, and there's some reservations on it on a few school districts, and it's, as properly said, it takes 1 to say no, and it doesn't happen. The same is true, and that's the flip side of the elephant in the room is we've heard the proposal. Now, if we go ahead and move forward, and so January, February, we get ready to move forward, and we say no to this, what's Mill Creek's response going to be? Are we wasting our time trying to move forward? Because if Mill Creek says no, the answer is no. So that's the elephant in the room. What we've got to figure out is if the answer is no, assuming the answer is no to change the formula, what's Mill Creek's next play?
Well, one of the next plays of any district is to start not sending some of their students to Erie County Technical School. But in the Articles of Agreement, it also says that even the state law, I'm sorry, not the articles, but the state law says if Erie County Tech offers us a course that isn't being offered at their home school, all the kid has to do is walk into the superintendent's office, says, I want to go to Erie County Tech and take this course, and they have to say yes and pay for it. You know, I don't know, we have a lot of new members on this board, and I'm sure some of those don't realize that that's in there, that they can't just pull a student to reduce their fees because of that state law. And that's what we are trying to do. Fred's trying to introduce a couple newer courses, one being the drone project, that'll get more students that who aren't here now that will want to come. Because that's a big business right now.
May I make a comment?
Yes, go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. So my name is Donna Miller, and I'm the superintendent at the Girard School District. And I think you all know that Mr. Lesnick is a very strong advocate for the Erie County Tech School. We have taken great pride in our membership there. One of the concerns that we have is that our school board did vote unanimously to move forward with the project based on the funding formula. That was a couple of years ago. And since that time, we worked very hard to save the amount of money that we were going to be required to put into the project. It was not easy. We had to cut staff. We made a lot of significant changes to make that happen. Had to drop programs, you know, the same kind of things that anybody else would have to do, but we did it and we're ready to move forward. So I just want, you know, to put that out there so that you understand for some of the smaller districts, our difference now is from 4.6% to 9.39%. And if you're familiar with Girard, it's a lovely community, and most of our tax base is single family homes with a value of $107,000 or farmland. There is no mall, there is no industry. And so it's very difficult for us to raise taxes. And we are the fourth highest tax rate in the county. And I think we're probably one of the fourth poorest districts as well. So, you know, our ability to continue to tax is pretty well diminished. Thank you.
Thank you.
I agree with you, Donna, but the one thing that keeps bugging me is the fact that I can't compare Sherman McLean's tax base, how many meals we're collecting, to anybody else. It's a fake number. Because one has tax bases that go up a meal and collect $600,000, and another one goes up a meal and it might only collect $400,000. So it's really a fake number when you look at it and try to compare it with other districts.
Perhaps we should look at something that would be more equalized then.
Correct. Yeah. It would really be nice if the state would allow us to set our own tax base.
Mm-hmm.
Good evening, everybody. Sam, may I?
Oh, okay.
Please. Thank you. I have met most of you. Some of you I have not had the pleasure of meeting, and it's really great to connect with you all, albeit virtually. Of course, my name is Ian Robertson. I am the proud superintendent of Mill Creek Township School District. You know, as I shared just a couple of reactions to our discussion this evening, I want to first react to Mr. Bugsby's point with regards to just the amazing programs that are being brought to the Erie County Technical School, including programs such as the one you mentioned with regard to the drone program. I have had the honor of sitting in a couple of meetings with my fellow superintendents, and I can share with you that there was unanimous excitement, including mine, around what some of the projects are, what some of the offerings are to our students. It is clear that regardless of where we sit in this position tonight, the one common denominator that we all have is that we know that the work that is happening at the Erie County Technical School will ultimately benefit those who we have committed to serve, and that's our students. And so there's absolutely no considerations, no discussions in the Mill Creek Township School District of not seeing the value in what is being offered there. I certainly appreciate some of what you shared earlier, Sam, and I appreciate the historical context that you provided, some of which I'm still trying to play catch up on. You know, you mentioned that, again, this formula was changed in 2009. And so since then, you all have had a number of discussions with regards to this project and the importance of the project. I know that you also mentioned, or someone else alluded to the fact that it's probably an unreasonable request in your minds for us to ask for this change in the formula now. I even heard someone mention that maybe it's a strong possibility for us to have some considerations to change the formula moving forward. What I want to offer to this amazing group of folks this evening is that, and just building on what Ken shared, we are just seeking a way forward. And ultimately, the ask of us is to look at the fact that we want to have sort of an equity-based formula that does not necessarily put us in a place where, as a school district, and for my colleagues as well, we cannot remain financially healthy. And so at the least, I am wondering if there will be some consideration based on what Aaron, our business manager, proposed in terms of the January and February timeline, for us to also consider, if not a formula change now, that there's a vote to consider a formula change moving forward. I really appreciate the spirited discussion this evening, but I want to assure you that we see the value in the Erie County Technical Schools offering. I am certainly excited about the collaboration that will happen between my peers, superintendents, and I for years to come. And we're just seeking a way forward this evening, regardless of what direction the vote goes in.
Thank you. I think that helps, a long ways in continuing the conversation about this.
I think the best way to approach this is to delay the request, but set a committee to review the entire Erie County Tech funding. And maybe 2 or 3 years out, have something totally different that is very modern. That's kind of my opinion, because like Donna said, people already voted on doing this based upon what they knew of their income. And now it's being changed and people aren't going to vote for it. That's my fear. My fear is there's probably 4 out of the 6 districts will say no. And all you need is 1.
Dr. Robert, let me directly ask the question, because you're offering there and talking about the future going forward to what. Let's assume for the conversation right now that at least 1 district says no. To what level do we need to wait to start this project before we come up? Do we have time to get some superintendents and maybe some JOC members together in a committee to work forward? I think that's a very reasonable path forward. That could take us a few months. And if we want to continue some resemblance of the timeline that we have in place to try to get, go to bid in 2 to 3 months, can we count on Mill Creek allowing us to move forward to get to bid to see what kind of projects we really have? The 30 was it 32.5 or 30, whatever it is, that's a maximum number. And we're not sure we're even going to get there. We don't know that until we get out to bid. So to what level or what timeline, when can we count on Mill Creek saying, yes, let's move forward with this, as long as we get a committee together and we look to that? Or do we need to have a whole formula for when this project is done before you guys would agree to move forward? I guess that's the question.
I will defer to have either Aaron or Mr. De Placido respond initially.
I think the board has looked obviously at the presentation that we're presenting this evening. And again, all of this is predicated on board approval, but I think a discussion could be held for options. I think the district is wanting to get this changed. And to what degree is a board decision? I can't say what it is. I don't know what it is. But I think further conversation would be appropriate also. I would have to ask about present situation. I think what we presented this evening would be approved based on previous discussions. But I don't want to close, nobody wants to close the door on this, but we certainly want to make it fair going into the future, as Dr. Roberts has said. So I think further discussion would be an option, and we could get that going as quick as we can.
Well, why don't all the board members, the JOC members, go back to their individual boards, show them these printouts, and ask them if they're still willing to vote for it.
Sam, if I may interject one time.
Sure.
Again, please, because I still, my first question still has never been answered, but we keep talking about resolutions and moving forward and everything. Well, if we change right now, we're going to be working on resolution number 3 to go back to our boards in a 1.5 year time period. I think like Gerard mentioned, you know, we did our homework for the last 2 years. Union City has done their homework for the last 2 years, and we scratched and saved our pennies, and we have our money set aside for this project. The original project, remember, it got booted out of the way because Mill Creek said they couldn't afford $32 million. Then we were going to go to a 3-phase resolution, and that was the resolution that I took back to my board. Then all of a sudden it changed and went back to the full $32 million project again. So then we all pretty much, you know, out in the open talked about it and said, yes, that's the proposed resolution we want to go with. Now we're going to change it again. I don't understand. I just think this late in the game, everybody has put their time and effort. Dr. Walker has put his time and effort into it. You have, the whole JOC has. It's time to move forward.
My suggestion, Steve, is not, I think Mill Creek's asked us, so I think we can all in January put this on our agenda and say, you know, are you willing to change it to this? As a follow-up, I mean, we can ask the question. As a follow-up then, I think the question is, when this project is done, not changing what we're looking at, but when this project is complete, would we be interested in for a discussion on changing the formula moving forward after this project is done? Let's say, you know, who knows timeline, but let's say it's 5 years out. Maybe we say 10 years because there's not going to be another capital project right away when we get finished with this. So looking at the next decade, can we agree to something to change that formula, not change the project that we're looking at now? I think that's what I'm hearing from a majority, but as a courtesy to Mill Creek brought this forward. Number one, are we willing to, you know, up or down vote from all 11 school districts in January, whether we could accept this? If the vote is no, I guess the question for the district would be, can we put together, would you support discussions in changing the formula for after this project is complete? That would be the second question I would propose.
The biggest thing, Sam, is even if you did work on something, superintendents, they generally don't hang around after 4 or 5 years, so you start all over again. And most board members don't rerun, or they lose after 4 years, and so now you got to go back in history, and there's different ideas, and it's just another delay.
That's why I think it's imperative that if we want to enter this discussion about future, is that needs to start happening. Even if we are a year away from resolution on what a change is, that should be done with the current players that we have, and everybody understands, you know, where we're going. The answer to that may end up being no, that we're not willing to change it. But I think as a courtesy to Mill Creek, we need to ask the question, are we interested in doing this proposal? If the answer is no, can we at least seek some input from a committee for something moving forward? Who knows what the answer is? At the same time, moving forward with this project, if the answer is no, again, the question comes back to, and we asked Tim this question a couple of months ago, when do we put it out to the districts? What I'm hearing from other districts is, till we know there's movement from all 11 school districts to support this, they're not in favor of spending another dime. In essence, we've already put $700,000 out there that will be wasted if one school district votes no. So we, at some point sooner rather than later, we need to get a commitment from all 11 school districts to move forward on this project with a cap of $32.5 million. If that's the right number, I don't have it in front of me.
I think something to keep in mind and just, keep it at the forefront of your thoughts when you're thinking about what we're going to do on this is, what are we all here for? We're here for the kids. The reason we sit on our school boards is for the kids in our community. These kids that attend Erie County Technical School, they're not going to college, but these kids are going to be the ones who build your house, run your electricity, fix your cars, work in our plants, do all of your health care. These are the kids who are there to take care of you in your old age, in your daily life. If we don't have these kids, if we don't have this Erie County Tech School, these kids are not going to be here for us when we need them. And if we don't have a school and we don't have equipment that they can properly learn on and that they can properly get an education on, then really, what are we doing here? That's really what it comes down to. These kids are our future. And it's something that everyone needs to really consider and think hard about when we look at whether or not we can afford this project, because if we can't afford it financially, then we're not going to be able to afford our future.
One of the things that I have realized about Erie County Technical School, I had 3 grandsons go through this place. And the thing that impressed me was the social interaction that they had with other kids from other school districts. Now they're graduated, and we're from McCain, and my one grandson says, well, I'm going to go talk to blah, blah, blah about one of the problems he's having with a car. And I said, well, where in the world did you ever meet him? He's from Northeast. Well, he was in my class at General McLean or at Erie County Tech. And they're on one name basis with each other, and they got hands full of those kind of contacts, which is a help to them after they graduate. It's just unbelievable.
We've heard from a handful of people. I know there's a lot more out there. Any other thoughts from anybody that hasn't had an opportunity to share anything or any input?
Yes. Hello. Hello. This is Gary Winchell from Mill Creek. You hear me?
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you. I have been on the board previously for 10 years and recently for the last 3 years, the finance chair now, luckily elected by my peers to be the president. So just a couple comments. I mean, we all realize the importance of the VOTEC. However, we have a fiduciary responsibility for our taxpayers also. And I've heard a lot of comments about not savings. We have saved. We have money set aside, but it still doesn't make it okay to fund and overburden our taxpayers for funding or subsidizing other districts. I just wonder, other districts are, I know we've heard that 6 would vote no, but maybe they're, what about the ones that would vote yes? I see Fairview would be $500,000. Fort LaBeouf would be $370,000. Even Harbor Creek, who's, you would benefit. How can you turn your back on saving money for your taxpayers? So I'm just saying, we're trying to work through this. There's got to be some resolution that we can move forward, but we just owe it going forward to our taxpayers. And, $1.8 million is a lot of dust shields, cleaning supplies for our 6,500 kids. That's a lot of money for our kids that we need to continue to help fund them. So I am passionate about that. I am passionate about technical training. I graduated from Erie Tech, which doesn't even exist anymore. So I'm a benefit factor of that. But I think from the other side of the coin, there are some other districts that would benefit. And I'm not saying this is the absolute, but I do appreciate the conversation where it's going. So let's continue to do that. And I don't know why it has not come to a forefront, because I know John has been bringing back for the last 2 years to our board meetings this conversation, and the conversation's always been the same about we need to stop the participation rate, to be more fair. We did that with the operating budget a number of years ago, and we transitioned that. So hopefully we can do that, like the one individual said about transitioning that over the next few years. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Gary. Any of those other districts that he just mentioned want to share any input there on your thoughts?
Hey, Sam, this is Bill Fenda from General McLean.
Yes.
I really have a couple questions, more than suggestions or anything. I don't remember, honestly, if there was discussion or if the Joint Operating Committee ever decided how this project is going to be financed. And by that, I mean, will there be some finance vehicle through the tech school that is then billed out to the sending districts? Or will each district be on their own for funding and either drawing down debt, issuing bonds, something like that?
Bill, I think previously we've discussed it here, and Fred
I think Tim could probably address that, because
and Fred can confirm it with me, but I think it was each individual school district was going to do their own bond issues.
Tim, do you want to address that?
I can. At one point in time during the process, we did attempt a survey of all the different districts as to how they were going to finance it. And the consensus or the results of that survey were all over the board, Bill. We had some members who were saving money to pay for it. We had other members that were going to finance it on their own as part of their own capital project budgets. And then we did have a few districts that were considering maybe getting together with the Erie County Technical School financing. And so there was no conclusion because we never got to the point of financing the project in and of itself. And so I can't give you a finding answer, but at the present time, it appears everybody's kind of going their own way, depending on whether they have funds saved or not.
Mm-hmm. Okay, the reason I asked that question is because if each district, say, does a bond issue, or if there's a collaboration or consortium, if you will, of school districts who do a bond issue, the payments could be structured so that it would allow time. The payments could be lower in the early years to allow time for the JOC to have these discussions about Mill Creek's proposal, and it would just buy time so that there could be some meetings, some discussions, and then after, say, 2 years, the JOC could revisit the funding formula, and it would just be a way to buy time if the early debt repayments were structured so that they're lower than the later years. The other thing is that if there's obviously a lot of anxiety about the cost of the project and putting a cap of 32 million on it. So as a couple people have already mentioned, there's going to be bids put out, and the 700,000 or so that's been spent already is a sunk cost. It's gone. So the key is going to be what will the bids come in at for the project, and that's going to be the time really where all of the districts will have to make that decision as to whether it's time to move forward and everyone's on board or not. And then at the same time, there will be discussions about the financing and whether each district needs debt or not, and how to structure those debt repayments. So thanks for letting me weigh in on that, but it's just food for thought, really, and some questions to to move forward with the discussion from Mill Creek's proposal.
Thank you.
Rick, do you have any comments?
I kept clicking on the wrong thing to unmute. The only thing I would say, I would agree with the idea is that we have to move forward now with what is. And I think that, it's changing the formula is a pretty big lift. And I think it's going to take a lot of time to really come to something that everybody can agree to. So, I like the idea of, maybe starting out with lower payments and looking at it more down the road. So I just don't think right now that could happen very quickly. But I do think that it's probably time to take a look at the formula.
Want to weigh in?
I want to thank everybody. This is Dan Schlesing from Charter School District, and I think this discussion is good, and I think the formula should be looked at, but I'm hoping to get through this remodeling, which is really really required to be done. And unfortunately, it's at least 10 years overdue. So if we don't get this done this time, we could have a proposal of closing if it collapses the school. I'm sorry about that. I'm hoping that never happens. Thank you.
Any other student superintendents want to weigh in that are out there somewhere? I can't see you, but you're there.
Sam, this is Eric from Fairview. Hey, I think that we need to sort of acknowledge Mill Creek's argument. They send 20% of the students to that school, and their obligation is 35% of the project cost. I think we need to acknowledge that. And at the same time, Fairview would save money with the new suggested formula. But with that said, we've made a commitment to do this project at the current funding formula and at that rate. And I think that our recommendation, at least my recommendation, I can't speak for my board, would be to move forward, but make the commitment to look at a formula that does seem to be broken right now. And I think if all districts would at least make that commitment to move forward, that would be an easier pill for Mill Creek to swallow, given the current situation.
Thank you. From the superintendent of this, the one that would benefit the second most from the proposal. Anybody else like to have any input here?
This is Mrs. Miller again. I would just say that I think most districts would concur with Dr. Kincaid that it is time for us to acknowledge what has become a stumbling block and see what we can do moving forward. And I really strongly feel that all districts want to maintain the Erie County Technical School because of the value that we have for all of our students. Thank you.
Hey, Sam, this is Ken. Just a quick question. We still need to have these plans reviewed, correct? Either by the Department of Labor Industry or a private reviewer. And I thought I saw that the cost of that was pretty high, $500,000 or $600,000. That has to happen before we would go to bid. Is that correct?
That is correct. Here's the update from earlier this evening and from Chris Coughlin. The amount that was in the budget for this was hundreds of thousands of dollars because it was figuring on going to labor and industry. With Summit Township still is under labor BIU still, the fee is substantially less. Coming into tonight, I thought it was $100,000 for the review and the permit. Tonight, there's a figure of about $50,000. So that has dropped dramatically. On the flip side of that, I'll give you a little sneak peek from earlier in the JOC meeting. We approved accepting the offer from PennDOT for the roundabout out front in the $60-some thousand range. that would be coming. So that's going to be coming next month for your approval. Each district needs to approve that. Our recommendation via a vote of the JOC is to use that money, keep that here for capital improvements. That essentially could be used to fund the permit of this, so that we don't have to go back and ask for any more. That was never in part of the $675,000 architectural fee, the permitting fees. But to do it right, we need to have a permit before we can then put it out to bid. So that's the timeline that we're working through right now.
So the permit cost was not in the original 600,000?
It was not in the original 600,000. It's part of the 32.5, actually budgeted at the $600,000 or $800,000 review. It's about 7% is what labor and industry charges. BIU is not that drastic in their cost.
But the fact is, before we go out for bid, we should have had a permit cost built into that 600,000.
That is correct. And that's why Dr. Walker and I are of the position that we're not comfortable telling, basically, I think January 5th was the date that Chris wanted to drop the plans off at BIU. As soon as you do that, now you are committing, because they take weeks and sometimes months to review. And we need to look at that as an operating committee's building committee. We need to look at that first, and then it needs to be sent to BIU. But we don't want to do that and commit ourselves again unless we have some commitment. We don't think it's proper, from what I'm hearing from other JOC members, to commit to spend any more money on this if we're not moving forward. So that's why I was asking the questions earlier. If all of us can commit to taking this to our boards, this proposal from Mill Creek, get a yes or no, and then secondly, would you at least entertain the discussion to change this? That's a way to move forward. At the same time, we can ask Mill Creek, hey, if this comes back no, we want to continue this process. As soon as we can get it, maybe as early as February, we could get this out to BIU and try to keep the timeline within a couple months of what we were projecting. So if there was no other conversation, and feel free to pipe up if you want to, I guess what I'm looking for is a consensus from all 11 school districts that we take, or 10 districts, that we take Mill Creek's proposal back to our districts. If we can do that in January, the JOC does not meet until January 28th. I don't know that we need, and Tim, I'd look for any input. I don't know that we need a JOC motion, because I don't know that it would pass without talking to our school boards to approve the formula, and then it would have to go to the districts for ratification. I think we ought to just start with the districts and say, hey, districts, are you in favor of this or not, to keep the ball moving? Can we do that, Tim, or do we have to vote as a JOC to ask the question?
Well, I mean, I think you could take it back to the districts, but maybe the JOC wants to vote on a course of action, as you've kind of outlined, in regard to a resolution concerning the formula as proposed by Mill Creek, number one. Number two, whether or not the school district would entertain a modification of that formula at some point in time. And number three would be a question in regard to proceeding forward with the necessary review of the plans in order to get to bidding. That's something that I think you're looking for authorization to do that. Maybe it would be a three-part question that the JOC can approve to be submitted to every school board for their reaction and answer. And that way you would have at least you would know where you stood as of the point in time when you would go out to bid.
I think it's important
This is open. Go ahead, John. Sorry.
I think it's important for our board to understand what responses to this proposal. I think we need to know that going forward. And as quick as we can do that, the quicker the better. Again, nobody's interested in closing the school or not promoting it to our students. Obviously, that's not the case. But I think we do need to come to some sort of resolution on this issue, and the quicker the better. Even if a committee of the 10 districts and Mill Creek can meet and discuss things, if that's possible, that would be okay. But I do think we need to resolve it, and I think we need to have a motion presented at the January meeting for something, for this proposal, for a combined effort that we could all live with, something. We just need to get off the dime here.
Just, if I can just ask a crazy question that I'm sure everybody would like to know the answer to. If the answer comes back no right now, that this will not pass, but the 11 school districts, 10 school districts are willing to look forward to this for something in the future. But right now, they can't financially, for whatever reason, they would not consider changing the formula right now. If that is the case, what does Mill Creek say to doing this renovation? Is Mill Creek completely shutting the door on it, not going to be interested, or are they determined to go forward? That's the real question here.
I don't think anybody is interested in not doing the project. Again, the reason we're meeting tonight is to attempt to modify the formula. Nobody has said that Mill Creek doesn't want to do the project. Nobody has said that at all. Nobody has said that Mill Creek wants to limit the attendance. Nobody said that at all. All we're asking for is a fair assessment of the charges, and going forward, a resolution of sorts, as we described today. And
I understand that, John, but the question is, my question is, if the formula cannot be changed before the renovation is to go forward, what is Mill Creek prepared to do?
we are prepared to negotiate. We are prepared to do whatever is necessary, as quick as necessary, to resolve this situation. So you're asking me how a board's going to vote. I'll ask you how your board would vote on any particular issue. Who knows? I don't know. But I think it's important that we come back with some sort of an agreed resolution and then let it go where it goes.
I would be happy for the JOC members to entertain a motion, as Tim kind of laid out, and frankly, I'll ask him to, if is seconded and approved, that he would draft a motion with the three parts of it, like he stated, to put out to each of the districts and ask them to consider that in January. If somebody wanted to make that motion, I'd be happy to entertain that.
I'll make a motion, Dennis.
All right. Is there a second? Just a second, Steve. Is there a second for that motion?
Mahoney, second.
All right. Go ahead, Steve.
I was just wondering, since the JOC is here, is it possible or legal or whatever you want to call it that the JOC can vote on whether we even want to take that resolution back to our boards? Because we've already done resolutions. We already have a formula on the table based on a $32 million project. I'm sorry, we're going to end up wasting 2 or 3 more months on this. And like Terry said at our work session tonight, the price is just going to keep going up and up and up.
Did we already close the meeting?
No.
The board meeting?
The meeting is still open. And Steve, I think to answer your question, my understanding is if the motion is, I understand it, and maybe we need Mr. Senate to rephrase that since he did such a good job. If you vote no on that, then we wouldn't take it back to the districts. Yes is to take it back to each district now to ask.
That's correct.
Please clarify what we're taking back to our districts one more time, Sam.
Go ahead, Tim. You want to do that?
It would be a motion as to whether or not the school districts would approve a modification of the formula based on Mill Creek's proposal, part 1. Part 2 would be, would the school districts consider a modification of the formula going forward? And then part 3, will the school districts agree to pay for the cost that haven't been authorized yet up to the point of bidding, which I think would be that at least the permit, and there may be other costs which I'm not familiar with.
Right. The second point would be if the first point is no, the
Right.
second point is, would you enter into conversations about changing that? And maybe we need to put a timeline on that to begin conversations within the next year. That new formula, if one was proposed at some time in the future, would take effect after this building renovation project.
Sam, this is Eric again. Hey, I think Mr. DePlacido and Dr. Roberts, they know that the formula is not going to get changed. They get that. I think one of the things, though, we have to remember, though, is their constituents don't know that. They don't know the conversations that have been had over the last year here amongst the JOC members. And Mill Creek, I think as a district, needs to do what's in the best interest of the taxpayers and at least go back to them and say, folks, we tried. So I think they know the answer. John, and correct me if I'm wrong here, I don't want to put words in your mouth. What you're looking for really is a commitment. You're looking for a commitment moving forward that this will at least be reviewed fairly by a group. I don't think there's any anticipation that it's going to be a unanimous decision to change the funding formula right now.
I heard you.
Steve, as a response to your, I think what we're doing is we're acknowledging kind of what Dr. Kincaid just said. We're acknowledging to Mill Creek that you've made a proposal, and I think you can recommend as a JOC member that your board not pass that. I don't want to ask for a vote tonight on whether we would recommend the voting because I'm afraid that would fail. We're taking it back. The decision's going to come down to each school district deciding that. And I think officially, if each school district says no, at least one school district says no, then we can move forward with step 2, and also to try to keep this project moving forward. I think this actually helps us move forward quicker if we pass this motion. Any other discussion, JOC? If not, Terry, want to give you a little second there. Can we do a roll call vote on this, please, just so we hear everybody?
Sam, I heard 1, 2, 3, 4 possible resolutions. Please identify again.
All righty. Tim's probably got it all wordsmithed now. Go ahead, Tim.
The resolution has 3 parts. At first, we will send it back to the school districts for approval of the change in funding formula as proposed by Mill Creek School District. Yes, no. If the answer to part one is no, will the school districts consider a change to the formula going forward? Yes, no. And number three, will the school districts agree to pay for the costs of permitting and other costs up to the point of receipt of bids for the project? I believe that's the resolution.
So are we going to break this down into 3 separate votes?
It would be one resolution where you would have 3 answers. Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no.
Understood.
Correct me, this is a resolution that we're posing to submit to our each school district. That's correct, or am I?
That is correct.
That's correct.
Okay, that's what I thought it was, but I double checking. Thank you, Dennis.
Dr. Walker can work with Chris and get an estimate for what that cost would be for part 3. I think we owe it to everybody to give them an approximate cost, because I can see questions coming up. Hey, we've already approved 675,000. What is that other dollar figure that we're asking, so that we know we have approval from all districts to continue moving forward in the project as it is now. Any other discussion? Tim's going to write that up and get it out to all the business managers to get on the agendas. And Fred's going to work on getting an amount so we can put that in there and have an estimate of what all those other costs are. This will take us up so we can have proposals and bids and know what our real costs are instead of the guessing. So, any other discussion?
So we won't know the results of this until the 28th?
Correct. I think most of our voting meetings are in the 3rd and 4th week in January. So because of the way the calendar falls, the 28th should be after all the districts vote. So we should have an answer, I think, on the 28th from all districts.
Because no matter what the answer is, obviously, we're going to have to take it back to the board at some point. And that's after I don't know how the days work in January here, but so there may be a February type resolution ultimately.
Correct.
Right? Okay.
But that probably, John, fits with our calendar for our discussion with our building committee and all that. So I think that you know, what we said earlier in the meeting, we don't want to rush this. We want to do our due diligence. I guess I'm here to do that.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Terry, can we have roll call, please?
Yes. Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mr. Dinsmore?
Yes.
Mr. Buxby?
Yes.
Mr. Olsnanek?
Yes.
Ms. Brink?
Yes.
Mr. Rickroad?
Yes.
Mr. DePlacido?
Yes.
Mr. Ring?
Yes.
Mr. Gilbert?
Yes.
Ms. Lee?
Yes.
And that resolution passes. I thank you all for giving us an hour and a half tonight, and JOC members more than that. So I appreciate all the work, and we'll work on getting the committee together here this next month, and we'll try to keep this project moving forward as best we can and look forward to your responses. I think all the business managers know how to get the answers back to Terry at the tech school, so we can have all that for the 28th for our next meeting, and then we'll be able to try to move forward in whatever the outcome of those votes are from each district. So, any other comments or discussion we need to have?
Motion to adjourn.
I'd like to thank everybody again for their honest comments and for listening to us tonight. I know it's a subject that quite an issue. But I do want to thank everybody again, I want to assure everybody that there's no intention from Mill Creek to ever close that school. It is as valuable as anything around here. And certainly we want that to continue. And we want all of our students that want to come. We will continue to do that. There is no, as Dr. Roberts said earlier, no intent to not support that school. It is an important asset to the county, to everyone, and to all our districts. We just need to get this particular issue resolved. So thank you.
Sam, I just had one question. Is Tim going to be able to get us the wording for the motion to take back to our boards?
Yes, he will get all that, and Dr. Walker's going to work on the fee, what that's going to be to get us through all the miscellaneous costs that have come up. So we'll get those out to each of the districts.
Thank you.
I can put that right in the resolution that I would draft, which will have a 3-part question, and that number can be right in the 3rd part. So you have one document you could share with your school boards.
Excellent. Thank you.
I guess I want to say one other thing, and that is, if you look at the one handout, the one page that shows the percentage of payment that each district should be making, that's the percent of ownership that you have in this facility. So it's not like you don't, if you stop paying, you lose something. You're going to lose the asset value of your percentage share. And I just wanted you to remember that. It's not like you walk away and close the building down. You're going to lose that asset.
Thank you, Jim. Dave.
And by the way, for those who aren't familiar with this, Union City did that. Union City pulled out of the Erie County Technical School. And about 10 or 12 years later, they bought back in. They had to pay all the previous expenses that were involved in increasing of the assets. They had to pay that all back, and they did that over a 10-year period. And they were back in for full-time participation in Erie County Tech.
Jim, you're showing your age again now.
Thank you.
Thank you all
I just want people to know that they own that part of the building, that percentage of the building and the property.
Right.
So,
Jim. Dave, does that motion still stand?
Yes, motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Nicole, second.
Thank you all very much, and Merry Christmas to you all.
Good night. Merry Christmas.
Good night.
I vote to adjourn.
Thank you. Hey, Happy New Year.
Happy holidays.
Thanks, Terry and Dr. Walker and Jeff. Thanks for all your back end work there.
Everybody's leaving. You're leaving.
Good to see you, Dennis.
Yes, nice to see you.
Thanks for the wonderful job you do for us. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
I
We love
applaud
our
you all
tech school.
on very civil conversation and working with the technology etiquette. That was very well done.
Good night.
Fred, you're good there on getting working with Chris and had the different pieces come together at us. We just got to put them all in and tidy them up so we know about where we're at, and hopefully we won't have to then go back and revisit that again.
I've got good notes, Sam. No worries. I'll get started on it first thing in the morning.
All right. Thank you all. Merry Christmas.